Welcome, my friends. Welcome to the second start of a freaky free-for-all Friday trucking technology and efficiency. See, I had a brain cramp. I was trying so hard to come up with something fun for the show today. I forgot to press the button. I have like two things I have to do to start a show. I have two buttons to press. One of them I forgot today. So we're kind of starting over. I had originally talked about the economy a little bit. I've got a bunch of notes on it here. I wanted to find something a little light and more fun on Friday. I just didn't find anything this week. So Joel's here with me. John's at the racetrack this week. We're going to get him back next week. Phone lines are open, so jump in and join us. I may talk about the economy. The problem is even the good news in the economy today really isn't good news. And I hate to be depressing on a Friday, so I'm going to bring in Joel and hope he has something good this week. Joel, welcome back. Oh, hold on a second. Why am I not hearing Joel now? Oh, boy. Hold on, Joel. You're not where you're supposed to be. Try it now.
That's better.
There we go. Holy cow. Maybe, it was so bad this morning, I was trying to come up with an idea, and I was just getting frustrated. I almost called off the show. I'm kind of a wreck this morning. Can't press the right buttons. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Well, politics suck, and they just infected your brain here, and you can't think.
I can't. It's like I just want to get away from it, but it's like I can't. Every topic I look at seems to be wrapped up in politics today.
I hear you. I work real hard just to try to ignore it, honestly. And I mean, I know you can't totally, but, this 24-hour news cycle, it gets to be old shit in a hurry. And I can't stand it. So I bury myself into research or something else so I don't have to pay attention to the crap. It's horrible.
It is. I wish I could ignore it. I feel like I just can't. Like it's part of my job. Like I've just got to know what's going on with this stuff. But man, it's getting old. Like I said, it's frustrating now that even the good news really isn't good news anymore. We don't need our good news in our economy because any good news probably just means inflation's going to get worse.
Yeah, I agree. It probably is. But that being said, you just got to keep in the back of your mind. It's a cycle. Yeah, it will come to an end at some point. We just hope that it's not prolonged. It's looking like it probably will be, but take care of business, and you're going to be all right. I know that's a generic kind of a statement, but it's true, yeah.
You're right. If you do all the things we talk about in business all the time, and the show's about being efficient, that's the whole key. If you do all these things, you'll make it through the worst of the cycles. I mean, that's the thing to remember is if you do the right stuff, somebody has to make it through this because somebody has to move the freight. And it's pretty basic. Just do the right stuff, you'll be okay.
And this is kind of why it probably isn't. The news on the economy probably isn't impacting me to the extent that it is some other folks. We tend to thrive when things are like this, just because of our level of efficiency and, being able to pass this along to people, makes me feel good because I know I can help them, one way or another here. So, I've got a topic today that, kind of goes to that point. I want to talk about, available horsepower versus required, and I'm sure folks are out there scratching their heads saying, how in the hell does this relate to the economy? But it absolutely does, and so that's what I had in mind for today.
Good. Honestly, what we talk about here on the show, keeping trucking efficient or making trucking more efficient, that is a really good thing for our economy. We do it to help, each individual and help trucking. But honestly, we know that what drove inflation this time was a lot of the supply chain problems. And if we can help make the supply chain more efficient, well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as much as you hate to say this, we all know it's true. This down cycle is going to wash a lot of people out here that are not efficient and they're not taking care of business. And, this is sort of how we recover. Rates will come back up as capacity tightens. We talked about the fact we had all this government money floating around, and we had a lot of people that are holding on that probably should have washed out by now. So it's really, I think, even more important that we focus on efficiency. We focus on the latest technologies and how to use them properly. We all know that they cost a fortune, and if we don't use them correctly, we're not going to get the full benefit out of them, and that can be problematic for your operation. So this available versus required horsepower, I think, is the very, very basic concept behind today's technology and downsped, and how I talk about multiple gears at highway speed. I think this will make it clear as to why that's important and how it can significantly improve your operations bottom line.
Hey, it's Friday, so we're allowed to do whatever we want on Fridays. We try to make things weird. So I've got a bunch of thoughts. All of a sudden, I want to get out of my head. One of the things I thought about maybe doing today, but I like yours, so I want to go with yours. And the one I'm thinking of, I want to plan a little more. We kind of do a series called Back to the Basics, where we just take a topic, and it could be anything. Could be something to do with health, could be money, investments. We do it a lot with the trucks, the mechanical stuff. And we'll take a system on the truck, and we'll say, look, we are going to pretend you know nothing about the intake system, and we're going to start from scratch. We're going to explain every step, how it works. And people have loved it. I mean, no matter what topic we pick, people really like that. So I thought, when it comes to fuel mileage, if you get back to the basics, even if it's really basic, there's a lot to talk about, because you have to talk about everything that could impact fuel economy and then explain. So it all comes down to physics, but we have aerodynamics to work on. We have parasitic drag to talk about. We have, rolling resistance. We have the engine efficiency, which is something you've really focused big on. And honestly, is probably one of the more complicated topics when it comes to, fuel mileage. There's a lot going on with that. So, but I think if we can go back and say, look, here are the basics. Here are the physics that you have to overcome to be able to use less fuel. And just take a day or maybe even two and just go through all of that from start to finish.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think today with the modern downsped engine designs, I think a lot of people are very confused about exactly how this is supposed to benefit them. Right. And, even salespeople are having a very hard time with this. And when you get the spec wrong and you don't get the full benefit of the downsped technology, it can go really bad for you, because now you're going to have these exorbitant emission system cost. And I'll talk about a guy that sent me a private message that's having this exact problem, and it's all based on his rear axle ratio, and hopefully we've got time to walk through that. But it's not just the fuel efficiency now it is the cost to maintain that emission system and even engine wear. There's a lot of products and stuff on the market that we can put into a poorly spec truck to help to control some particulate and soot, but that doesn't solve the problems of the power curve and how that truck's going to perform, and even how many times that piston's going up and down the bore, so you can directly relate that to engine wear. So it's very, very important that we get this base specification spot on. And that means having the gearing optimized for the power curve on the engine to give you the most versatility to pull different loads in different terrains. And in the past, we've always talked about one gear at highway speed, always. Right. Even when we re-ratio a truck and we talk about driving 264 in direct, That's fine for a non-emissions truck with an old-style transmission. And hopefully today we're going to see why that's not such a good idea with a new emissions truck and an optimized, gear set in a transmission. So a lot of things to put together here.
Good point. The other project I want to talk with you and John on, I started a book on fuel mileage years ago. We've got a lot of material there. And after a while, I figured, you know what, this would make a better course than a book. So we have all the material. I was really, I broke everything down, did all the basics, and really where I was kind of stopped was the engine technology, because I knew I needed to go do a really deep dive. All the engine technology was changing. Everybody was doing their own proprietary things. And that's kind of where I stopped because I needed to do so much research on that. Well, you've done a lot of that. I mean, we have all of that now. So I'm thinking the three of us as a combined project build that fuel mileage course.
Sure, it makes sense. And there's some basics that apply across all the technologies. And I think this available versus required horsepower, it's definitely going to apply across a Volvo, a Detroit, a Cummins. Now, they may have slightly different solutions to this, but it's going to apply universally across all platforms. What we're trying to do in order to reduce emissions and do it in a fundamental way at the base spec, so we don't have to, treat the hell out of the fuel in order to get the truck to run right. That's expensive in its own right, and it doesn't solve all the problems. It can very well take care of some emission problems, but you're definitely not getting your optimized fuel mileage or productivity or even drivability out of it if your gear train and your rear axle ratio are not optimized. And you sat through an 8-hour course where we were talking about tractive effort at the wheel end and doing a lot of complicated math. We'll try to simplify that a little bit today. I just want to get the base idea across so people start to look at this a little different way and they get off this hang up of being in a single gear at highway speed, and hopefully I can explain why it's important for that to happen, and then we can kind of go from there.
Excellent. All right, so I just looked down, the phone lines are slammed, which is kind of odd. I want to really get to this topic. I had an interesting call yesterday on a topic that has been brought up several times over the years. I have some pretty strong opinions on it, and it's actually our first caller. So I think what I want to do, and I'll talk to you a little bit about, because I think you might have some ideas about this topic too. We'll bring that caller in, and then we'll come back and we'll start that fuel mileage thing, because this one has nothing whatsoever to do with fuel mileage. So here's the thing, and we're going to bring in Charles. He's in Louisiana to talk to him about this. I was approached the first time with this idea like 25 or 30 years ago. It was a long time ago somebody brought it to me. When they first brought it to me, I thought, wow, that's a really good idea. I actually started to get involved. And then once I really kind of dug in, I found out that it wasn't a good idea. It was actually a horrible idea. And it's been brought to me probably 5 or 6 times in the last 25 years. People keep bringing it back, and I tell them the same thing every time. I can't see a way to make this work. And the idea is using trailers as billboards for advertising. So an owner-operator, maybe, who owns his own trailer, we have a company that, kind of manages all this. They go get the advertisers, they get the owner-operators, they put it together, and owner-operators or small fleets or big companies, whoever, use their trailers as advertising space, billboards. Sounded like a great idea. It's an awful idea, and I doubt that anybody's ever going to be able to figure out how to make it work. So what do you think about that? Any thoughts? Have you ever talked about it, thought about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the only way that you make that work I don't know that, big national companies really make that work effectively. Individuals, kind of like myself that have a strong social media presence, and like I'm actually out on the road driving, I think I could probably make something like that work to a certain degree to a very specific set of maybe like corporate sponsors that would be interested in what I'm doing. But on a big scale or a wide scale, that would be really hard to make work, I think.
Okay.
People looking at trailers, it becomes difficult, I think.
Yeah. And like I said, I have two big reasons, a bunch of little ones, but we'll bring Charles in so we can talk about this all together. Charles, welcome.
Hey, nice to talk to you, Kevin, Joel.
Yeah, great to have you here.
How you doing?
I really like to encourage people. I love business. I love new startups. I love new ideas. I hate to be the one that rains on somebody's parade, but I'm going to drop, golf ball size hail on yours.
And I want to hear it
Okay.
because I'm early enough that if you inform me that it's a total disaster at this point, if you make a believer out of me, I might be able to pivot in a direction that's good,
Good.
So I'm not going to be mad at you, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you know what? When I have these conversations, like I said, I love ideas. I love business. I hope somebody can convince me I'm wrong, that there is a way to overcome this and make it work. But I haven't found it yet. Here are the two big problems we have to overcome before we even look at the little problems. The big one is that advertising is all about image, reputation, all of that. Now, when you talk to the general public about driving on the roads with trucks, is the response going to be positive or negative?
It's negative, and let me reinforce this for you. So Ploger Transportation spends a fortune graphicking up trailers. For a fleet our size, we probably put a little bit more money in it than normal. And early on, we had an 800 number plastered all over that trailer. And I thought, man, what a great way to get drivers to call. I thought we're going to knock it out of the park.
But you got the wrong drivers.
The only problem, yes. Well, it's cars complaining about how crappy your drivers are. And so everything on that trailer gets associated with something negative.
Yep.
And that is the big problem to overcome. In my mind, the only way you put advertising on a trailer is if it's something that's trucker specific, aimed at truckers or fleet managers or something like that. Then you've got a shot at making that work. But let's just pick a store out of thin air. I don't know, JCPenney, and you want to put a big ad on there. And supposing that truck cuts some people off,
no, not
right
supposing.
In their mind, now they're pissed off.
Not supposing.
Yeah, and they are pissed off at JCPenney, and they're calling JCPenney. They're calling and they're bitching about it. It will just overrun you with negative. For every positive call you get 500 negative calls.
And here's the problem. Even good drivers, even really good drivers, still piss off the general public.
Yes, it happens. There's no way around it, and that is the problem. The general perception of truck drivers is kind of like Congress, Most people just aren't fond of truck drivers on the road.
They're not.
And it's second something happens, that big billboard turns into this big target for negativity, and it is a problem.
So, Charles, that's the big one. Let's say we overcome that. Okay. Then there's another really big problem. So let me put the two big ones out there, and then we'll talk about it. Let's say we overcome the reputation thing, and I'm not sure how we're going to do that. It is really bad. I don't know if we can get across how bad that issue is. But the next one is just as bad because it goes to the revenue model and why it doesn't work, even if we ignore all the pissed off people. Because you might say, look, yeah, I know we're going to get pissed off people. They'll complain, they'll call, but we're going to get good calls. Somebody will see this and we'll make a sale. Except you don't. And here's why. And I didn't get this because I didn't understand advertising. I had to go figure it out. Advertising, honestly, is about one thing. Repetition. It's about three things. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Think about the commercials you hear when you listen to a radio show. You hear the same damn commercial over and over 6 times during the show, and you've been hearing it for the last 3 months. That's how advertising works. That's how it has to work. Now, you put a message on a trailer, and if I see it today, the odds of me ever seeing that message again are really slim. There is no repetition in this form of advertising at all. You don't know who's going to see your trailer. You have no way to track who's seeing your trailer. It's just all the things you have to do to create a really effective advertising campaign. You can't with this model.
I agree. Yeah, you're starting out behind the 8 ball. There's no doubt.
Oh, there's no doubt if this was simple and straightforward, it would have been done a long time ago because, the billboard industry has about 350,000 billboards in the country. They generate about $7 billion worth of revenue. So it's a big number.
Do you know why billboards work?
Why is that?
Because commuters going back and forth,
right,
see that billboard over and over and over and over and over. That's the repetition part.
And there is. I mean, generally in advertising, the rule of 7 is that, nobody buys anything until they see it 7 times.
That's a good point.
People. That's a common deal.
With this trailer thing, how can I set this up so people see it 7 times?
Well, what we want to do is, first of all, we're coming at it from a little bit different angle. Traditional advertising is built around branding. So Coca-Cola, Levi's, General Chevrolet, whatever, they're into that brand tradition of branding up products. What we want to do is to come at it more from the modern internet marketing point of view, where you put a really sweet offer in front of somebody and you get them to move right then. And what the part of the truck that we don't want to wrap trailers. It's very expensive, very cost inefficient. What our sweet spot is the back of the truck. A small ad on the back of the truck,
which makes it even worse. Attention. Because now we've limited again how many times somebody's going to see something. Let me give you an analogy of your idea of the offer is so good you can't pass it up. Well, first off, if I'm the advertiser, if I have to make an offer that good, I'm probably losing money somewhere. I mean, this better be a damn good offer if you're going to grab somebody with one. Right. So now as an advertiser, you're going to come to me and say, look, you got to spend this money to advertise and you got to give me this killer deal. Well, wait, why would I do that? I'm going to lose money if I do this. And let me give you an example. My business, I'd love to have more business. Everybody in business wants more business. So how do I do it? Well, I have to advertise, I have to market. Well, using this logic of make it so good, we're only going to be able to get this to their eyeballs once maybe. So in my business, why don't I go borrow a bunch of money and run one Super Bowl ad? Because it wouldn't work. I would get killed. Yeah. That would never work. But it's the same thing. I'm going to get one shot at somebody's eyeballs, and I have to sell them in a minute as they're driving by this trailer. I can't sell that. There's nothing I can put on that trailer that would convince somebody to make that call.
It is a challenge, for sure. To come up with the right pitch that someone really likes. But there's one change in technology that I do think makes things different, and that is that what we want to do is to pretty much, the phone and the car have almost merged together. Everybody, at least in any car in the last decade or so, has hands-free dialing. You push the button.
Hey, Charles.
Whatever, talk in.
Charles.
Yes.
Let me jump in there, because there's another problem that you're going to face when you go to your potential advertisers. The trend is nobody wants phone calls anymore. Nobody wants
that actually is true.
Nobody wants you to call them anymore because it's expensive to have people answering phones all day. So they want you to go to their website. We do not want to be encouraging people to go to their website while they're driving.
No, nobody. You don't want to encourage anybody to go to the website while they're driving. That's an absolute fact.
Right. So the idea of the car and the phone merging doesn't help us.
Well, there are still significant numbers of companies out there that take calls, that they have call centers, that they have offers out there.
Hey, Charles, do you want?
Yeah.
And again, I'm throwing. Now I'm up to baseball size hail. Do you really?
Yeah.
But so the trend has been less phone calls, more internet forever. And that trend is accelerating.
Absolutely,
and you're saying there are still some people out there that do it the old way. We're going to go build a business to try to serve people that are doing things the old way, and the trend is going the other way.
I think you have a point, but I also know that those companies still have call centers. They still put out offers to.
Hey, Charles, let me do this. Now I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to put a little pressure on you.
Okay.
Give me a sales pitch. You could pick any product you want. Pick your best product. Cherry pick it. Right now, cherry pick it. Give me the best idea, the best product, and the pitch you're going to put on the back of the trailer that's going to sell us all.
Okay. Just one moment. For instance, there are many, many dating companies that have a hard time getting ads. So if I have a dating site, male, that is designed for men, we say, hey, over 30, looking for a serious relationship, blah, blah, blah. Call the number. Good graphics, sweet little catch. It's going to get a lot of phone calls. And then a company on the end has to deliver.
Hey, Charles, wait a minute. We don't want to encourage people to call while they're driving. And is this geared towards truck drivers?
It would be geared towards anybody on the road.
But just so you know, for a very short period of time, I was an owner of a website that was basically, farmersonly.com. We were kind of, the truckers love connection.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that site doesn't exist anymore. We kind of had it because I wanted it's Aaron. Actually, and there's a long, funny story behind how Aaron ended up with that website, but it worked out well because that's how I met Aaron. Aaron's now our business partner, does all of our IT, our websites, everything, but that site doesn't exist. Yeah. There was no way we were moving forward with that site.
Kevin, let me stop you for just 1 second so everybody's not confused. So you met Aaron on a Love Connection website. I just want to clarify that real quick.
You're right.
It didn't sound all that good.
No, you're right. Let me correct that. So I'll kind of give you the short version of the story. Aaron started a company building websites for people. That's what he does. He's really good at it. Yeah. And one of the sites somebody was paying him to build was this Truckers Love Connection. And they were just getting it started. Yeah. It was new. They got it all set up. They were trying to get business for it. The owner died. And he owed him a bunch of money, and the site wasn't making any money, and his widow told Aaron, I can't pay you, I'll give you the site because that's all I have. So now Aaron goes from being a, computer website builder, designer, to he now owns a website and he's got to start making money with it. So obviously he needs to learn the trucking industry because he wasn't in it. We met him at a truck show. He was there trying to get business. I saw the site, fell in love with their design and their functionality, and said, whoever built that site, I want them to build our site. And when I found out the price, the only way I could afford it was to make Aaron a partner. And it all worked out great. I mean, it was a long time ago. It worked out great. But thank you, Joel. We did not meet on the dating site.
Just wanted to be clear. I mean, we had some naked gardening going on earlier in the year, and now the love connection. So,
yeah. Oh boy. All right. So, Charles, you've been a good sport, really, and we can continue talking about this. But you've got a tough way to go. I haven't heard an idea yet that's going to change my mind on this.
That's fair enough. I mean, I think. Oh, go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, the other part I think you really got to seriously consider is there is a liability associated with a truck when it is rolling down the road. And if you have a customer that's going to choose between a billboard, which essentially has no liability associated with it, and a truck that they have no control over, that driver that's getting in that, and a guy happens to get in there drunk and kills 14 people, and their ad's on the back of that trailer, it's not going to work out well. And I don't think most companies are going to be willing to accept that type of liability, because when they do have the accident, we all know what attorneys do. They look to see who has the deepest pockets, and it's never the truck driver. Right. If it's an owner-operator, it's never the owner-operator. It's the company they lease to, or maybe who had the ad on there, and they're going to say, oh, this advertiser didn't do their due diligence. We're going to bring them into the lawsuit as well.
And Charles,
so
if you think that sounds
a huge liability there,
yeah, and if you think that's kind of way out there or outrageous, it's not. One of the things we've been talking about for the last decade in this industry is something we call nuclear verdicts. We're terrified in this industry of nuclear verdicts. You hit somebody and kill 6 kids at a bus stop, man, that becomes worldwide news just about. And they go after everybody. They go after the brokers. They go after the last shop that worked on the brakes. I mean, they go after everybody.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's a huge issue right there. The liabilities is a concern. Everything you've said is true, and everything. But I do think, like I said, there are advertisers who have a hard time getting their message out, and they want, they're constantly looking. If we can show them it's not for everybody, it's not for every ad, it's not for wrapping trucks. It is sort of a niche thing related to.
Okay, I'm gonna make you an offer. Like I said, I wanted to, hail on your parade. I wanted to hit you with everything I could. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, always have been. Love challenges, love it when people tell me you can't do that. It's never going to work. I've been told that before, and I've ignored them, and I've made things work. So I know it can be done. I wouldn't tackle this one, but maybe you have some reason and if you decide to tackle this and you get some progress and things are going well, I would be willing to talk to you about helping you find the trailers. Owner-operators, small fleets, whoever. We have huge inroads into that. So if you can get this off the ground, looks like it's going to work, and you wanted to, I'll throw the offer out there. We could talk about, Yeah. So, like I said, I'd love to see this work. I don't think it's going to. I haven't heard any ideas yet. But if you decide to try it, I'd be willing to help. Here's something else. Have you thought about this yet? When you approach an advertiser, what is the offer? Like, what is the contract length that you need them to commit to?
That's in most advertising, they want people to commit to, 3 month or 6 month kind of offers. That's the biggie. But I don't know what we're going to do. They're going to have to pay the setup cost. We're not going to pay for so they're paying a setup cost like you do on a billboard. And so I would assume they're going to want to stay for at least 3 months. They're not going to want to shift that many times.
So here's where this becomes a financial issue, and Joel, you can weigh in on this because you understand the cost. In 3 months, as an owner-operator, if you are contracting to put these ads on my trailer, I'm going to lose a day of work every time I have to have an ad put on. I have to take time. I have to come off the road. I've got to go take that trailer down. I've probably got to leave it there at the graphic shop. And we have a cost. Now, if the advertiser has to incur that cost, you've got to be able to sell them on that cost. But as an owner-operator, if I have to go down twice in 3 months and lose a day of work to get this graphic on, how much are you going to pay me? I don't know if you can make it worth my time to lose those days.
That is a part of the puzzle that that is really sort of a new thought to me, in the sense we haven't really addressed that.
So we struggle. Yeah, we struggle with this with our own graphics on our own trailers. When they're new and they come in, they have to set in the yard, and kind of wait their turn to get the graphics put on them. And I'll tell you, my sister-in-law has a fit. She's looking at them numbers and she's like, get them goddamn trailers moving. What are we doing here? But it's, so you're going to be anybody that understands their numbers and understands just the downtime alone is going to be minimum $1,500 a day. That's going to be minimum.
Here's something else to think about. I've got graphics on my trailer. That customer's contract expires or whatever. They don't renew it. You now call me or send me an email and say, hey, we're going to switch out the graphics. What if the owner-operator just doesn't go? How do you enforce this? Look, I'm not taking another day off. I'll do it next week. Now, all of a sudden, you've got somebody getting advertising that's not paying anymore.
Yeah, that part of it is a tricky part of the equation, how to keep the drivers, knowing that they're fulfilling part of the
right. And then the other thing that's going to rain on your parade here also is, okay, let's say Kmart. Okay, I put a big Kmart ad on my truck, and I have to go to a Walmart distribution center. A lot of these places throw a bitch fit about that. Right. They absolutely do. We don't want their damn trailer on our property. I've seen that happen before. Hey,
Charles,
you got to think about that as well.
Charles, let me give you a good example of this that a lot of people don't realize. UPS has a lot of vehicles on the road, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell me who makes any of their trucks?
No, I know they take the insignia off.
You know why they do that?
Probably because they deliver for all the companies that make trucks.
Just what Joel said. They do not want to pull into a Freightliner operation with a Kenworth truck.
No, that's exactly right. So that is a problem. There will be companies that are sensitive to that. Not all of them are, but there will be companies that are sensitive. And if you go to owner operators, then that can be very problematic for them because they're married to that same trailer. The other problem you have is you go to a Schneider, you put this fancy dancy ad on there, and then it goes out to the Salt Lake City terminal, and it ends up sitting in their drop lot for 2 months before it moves.
Yeah.
That shit happens. They've got 4 or 5 trailers to every truck, and trailers. Even in our fleet, Ploger Transportation, our trailers only accumulate 25 or 30,000 miles a year. The trucks accumulate 125,000 miles a year. So that's problematic as well. There's just. Oh man, there's a lot to overcome there, but a positive attitude and somebody that wants to do something and they're motivated, who knows what'll happen.
Well, I appreciate it, and y'all have raised. I'm really happy I talked to y'all because there's a lot for me and my partner to unpack on this call, and we have to address the issues. And we recognize that there's a lot of reasons that, if it was easy, people would have done it in the past.
Absolutely.
And we do see it, sort of a niche project, not something that's for everybody, not something that's gonna, it's not something that will be, some gigantic. I don't think I'm gonna, Jeff Bezos isn't going to lose any sleep over me. Let's put it that way.
Hey,
but
Charles,
I believe there's a niche to make it.
Couple more things for you. Not that we haven't beat you up enough already, but we might as well throw it all in there. Have you ever?
So you might as well keep up.
Yeah. Have you ever watched the show Shark Tank?
Yes.
Okay. Because I learn a lot of good business lessons on Shark Tank, and here's one of them. You have to be careful even when you have a good idea. And I'm not so sure this is. I mean, on the surface, seems like a great idea. Till you start digging into all the problems, then you see this is a real challenge. Let's say you do break through and you prove that there's a way to do this. Well, whatever way you prove is going to be pretty obvious. However you just figure out to overcome this is going to be pretty obvious. What's going to stop some advertising agency that already has all the advertisers? They do their billboard work, they do their radio work, they do their TV work. Now all they have to do is say, oh, by the way, we have a new opportunity for you. They have all the customers already.
That actually is a big concern in terms of if we can get past the hump even, that's a concern that I have, because I don't think that's probably been one of my big concerns about the whole project from the beginning, that I think if we can prove it up, that sort of simple ads with great little offers can work, we'll have a hard time holding the market.
I forgot one more thing here. What's your background and what's your partner's background?
Yeah, we both came out of internet advertising, internet marketing.
Okay, good.
And so that's why for us it looks like an internet.
Yeah, I was going to say, everybody that brought this idea to me in the past was in trucking. And the problem, I said, is, look, advertising is complicated, technical. It's part science, part art. I mean, it's kind of crazy. And you guys have zero experience in that part of this, and that's what this business is all about. It's not about trucking. This isn't trucking at all. This is advertising, and everybody that brought it to me had zero advertising experience.
One example you may want to go look at. Remember, Kevin, when Progressive Insurance was doing a deal, if you bought insurance through them and you put fairings on your truck, somehow they would cut you a deal on the bill if you put their name on the belly fairing.
That's right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
That was 4 or 5, and that came to an end pretty quick. So I don't know exactly what happened there. You may want to investigate that. I'm assuming they ran into a bunch of the stuff that we just talked about, the negative part of it, and they just quit doing it. So you may want to investigate that, and that may give you a heads up on what you're thinking about here.
I will indeed. Yeah, at this point of our operation, we were trying to see, if we could even get trucks to sign up, owner operators who wanted to sign up. So, we have a website up. Anybody can go to Extra Mile Ads and wants to, there are a lot of scams in the auto, car, truck advertising. There are people out on the West Coast who actually charge car owners to put an ad on their car. Those guys, some of them are being investigated by DAs and stuff, completely bogus. But our thing, all we're asking drivers to do at this point, owner operators to do, is to go to the website, register, and help us get to a critical mass so we can even try to see if we can make the thing work. Well, because without the trailers, we can't even get to the point of the rest of it.
Right.
So the trailers are so long.
Charles, we'll help you out with this part. Do you have the website? Is it up and running?
It's up and running, extramileads.com, and it's a simple sign-up process, and all they're doing is just saying, hey, if you get this rolling, I would like to see offers that I might want to show.
And that's a good way to start. So let's get it out there again. It was now I forgot it already. That's why we have to say it a lot of times.
Extra
Repetition.
Mile. Repetition, my friend. ExtraMileAds.com. 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 There we are. Three times.
There you go. Now, Angie just asked me, is it extra XTRA or extra EXTRA? I'm assuming E.
EXTRA.
Got it. Okay. So we'll keep putting that out there. Are you a member of either one of our websites, healthytribe.com or truckingtribe.com?
No, I'm not. But I've been I listened to some of your content, after I talked to your really gung-ho friend, Steve, yesterday. And I listened to some of your content, and I'm very impressed. I really like your show a lot.
Well, thank you.
I think you turn out some great content.
I appreciate that. So if you want, join Healthy Tribe and Trucking Tribe. It'll cost you a whole $3 a month each.
Okay.
And we don't do any advertising on that site, really. We don't get sponsors. We have no sponsors on there. We advertise some of our stuff on there is about as far as it goes. But if you want to jump in there and ask people about it and start a conversation, say, hey, our site's kind of like Facebook. It's like a big Facebook group. In fact, both of our sites used to be Facebook groups, but we got so tired of being censored. We got so tired of being censored on Facebook, especially on the health side of things, that we just moved off Facebook, created our own sites. But it's the same thing. You put up a post, people can comment on the post, you can get conversations going back and forth. So you join, put a post up and say, hey, here's my site. We'd love if you'd go check it out. And if you're interested, sign up. If you have any ideas, get a conversation going on there. Get some feedback from owner-operators and drivers.
Well, I will absolutely do that. Like I said, I liked your post. I listened to part of the show, before I came on when I was, waiting to come on. And I agree with you. A lot of stuff. I think y'all guys have a great analysis. The economy and politics and everything, it is a challenge, and business is a challenge. And so I will do that. I've enjoyed this. Y'all are the first guys to really beat me up on the air on this. I've been on a couple of other podcasts and stuff who've been ridiculously positive. And so
yeah, just call us Debbie Downer.
Okay. Well, there we are. But we'll see how it goes, and I will join your sites, and I'll be involved, and I'll be in touch. Okay.
Yeah. And one more thing, because I know you want your partner to hear this, and I know how hard it would be for you to take everything we just threw at you and convey it to him. But all you have to do is get our app, which is free. And you can listen to all the past shows anytime you want. So you can just have him listen to the show, and you don't have to try to convey all that information to him.
Yeah, that's a great plan, because y'all have given me about 117 things to think about.
Right. That's our job.
That is indeed. So I do appreciate it, and it's been fun. And y'all really there's quite a few things you made me think about here. So I appreciate it, and like I said, we'll see how it goes, and hopefully I'll get enough guys signed up that we can begin to address the next steps.
Excellent.
So that's where we're at.
Excellent. All right, we want to hear back from you too.
Oh yeah, I'll be in touch.
All right,
I really will. And there's absolute. Okay, take care. Bye bye.
All right, thanks, Joel. We have got. I think we broke a record. We might have more calls on hold than I've had since we started this podcast.
Well, that's a good thing.
So can we skip the horsepower thing this week and do it next week?
Yeah, let's take some calls. I guess we got people calling. Let's take the calls.
Yeah, they're piling on here. So let's go to Tennessee. Raymond, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Kevin. I've listened with very much interest to the last dialogue there, because I've been interested in that for years myself. I'm going to get in touch with this guy.
Good.
And maybe we can. I mean, I've always thought we got a driving billboard here, but I understand all your points too. So
and here's the thing.
Yeah.
We do like challenges. I don't know if this is a challenge that can be overcome. I tend to think it can't be, and I hate to be that negative, but I'll be positive in saying that if there was ever a group that could help somebody figure it out, he ended up in the right place.
I agree with that. I think positive people with positive attitudes that are motivated, even though there's a lot of challenges to overcome here, and we pointed out a ton of them, I wouldn't bet against the guy. If you get a bunch of motivated people in the room, I kind of see this as like he had said, maybe a smaller type solution here. I don't think it's going to be mainstream and acceptable to everybody, but everything that we talked about, when you know the problems that are in front of you and you understand the problems and you're motivated and you're determined you're going to make this work and you get a few people around you, things happen. So this will be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, it will. And look at my business. Honestly, there's only one of them in the country. There really isn't anybody else doing what I do. There's no other business quite like ours. And ours would never go mainstream. I would never take my idea of my business to Shark Tank and try to get them to invest in it. It's a small little boutique business that provides value to, a core group and has created a nice living for me. But it's nothing more than that.
That's exactly the same thing with my Alpha drivers. I mean, I've got something here that I'm not aware of anybody else that's doing the exact same things that I'm doing, working with some of the corporate people. It's a niche thing. I've worked my ass off at this, and it's starting to come together and starting to actually make me some money, which everybody told me, you're dreaming, this is crazy, it will not work, just get in the truck, drive it, and shut your mouth, you'll be better off. And I just couldn't let it go, so I understand that the power of positive thinking, and if you're willing to put some effort behind it, you can accomplish some things that everybody's going to tell you will never happen.
And I'll tell you what, after that phone call, I'm encouraged by his attitude. We beat the hell
It was great.
We beat the hell out of it.
Never say die.
And not
never say die attitude. Never say die. You got to keep going. Yes.
Not once.
And he wasn't combative.
Joel, that's exactly what I was just going to say. Not once did he fight back. He listened. He had a totally open mind. He didn't get defensive. He listened. That's a really good sign.
Yeah, that would tell me if somebody's going to make it work, it'll be this guy. I went through that same thing with my brother and sister-in-law and the engineers that I work with. They tell you this ain't going to work for something. And when I first started doing the things that I do, I'd get combative about want to fight with them. You know what I mean? And then I started listening to everything they would say. You'd write it all down, take all of the issues, and then address their issues, and then come back to them. They'd find some more, but it would be a little narrower list. We'd work that down, and then pretty soon you're at a solution that actually works. It's a lot of work, and you got to learn to shut your mouth. That dude had a great attitude.
Yeah,
there is no doubt. I mean, that was pretty awesome. I was just waiting for him to get fired up and want to fight about this, but he kept his composure. He listened and he understood. He understood what we were saying, and it bodes well for his future success. There's no doubt.
I can tell you this: I would not.
It'll work if you'll work it. That's my thing.
If the roles were reversed during that call,
if you will work it.
Yeah, I would not have handled that nearly as well as he did. I know I wouldn't have. Well, I've been there. Let me give you an example. Exact same thing. An idea that nobody was doing anywhere. So you can't look at it and say, oh, well, they've already done it. Here's how you do it. Here's a way to make it better. I was told over and over and over by people with lots of experience in the industry, that's a really bad idea and it's never going to work. And that idea was the CMC. And that event really, we've stopped doing it now, but we're probably going to bring something back like it. We did it for over a decade. That program was the biggest, really the only program in the industry like it. There's never been any other event for owner-operators like the CMC. Our last year, we had 400 people there for 5 days. It was a huge event. When I first came up with that idea, and I went out to fleets to talk to fleet executives about getting their owner-operators into the program, and here's what I was told. This is a really bad idea. And I'm like, well, why? They could really use this information. Look at how much we can help them. And he said, we can't get people to show up for a half-hour safety meeting, no matter how much we bribe them. And you think they're going to pay thousands of dollars and come sit for days and days?
Yes.
But it worked.
I guarantee that would have been my brother's answer to you. I guarantee you, because that's what he's used to seeing.
Right.
Yes. Trucking executives used to dealing with a large group of drivers that are not singling out the talented ones, but have to deal with the bitchers, the pissers, the moaners on a regular basis. And the talented ones, they just get shit done and they don't get noticed.
Exactly.
So in their mind, every driver is, a bitcher and complainer. And so, you come to them with this and they're looking at you like you got 14 heads going, what the hell are you thinking,
Yeah.
So, but, that's just a case of you knowing and targeting a specific audience that is there that nobody else realized was around. So, awesome.
And in the beginning, I was able to make this work with just 25 people per event. That was my goal. If I can get 25 people per event, I can make this work. And for the most part, I did. But in the beginning, I remember doing a CMC once for 5 people. 2 full days. It's like 11, 12-hour days of me standing up there and talking, and that was all I had in the room that time. Obviously I can't make any money like that, but over time I built it, and like I said at the end, the program was huge. And we're going to bring something like that back. But I was told over and over and over by a lot of people in the industry that knew a lot about trucking, said it's never going to work.
I believe it.
Charles there really answered one of my questions. I've been hit up, I don't know how many times, by text with people wanting to advertise, and I think they were scammers, from where they're from, right?
Yeah.
It's anyway. I've even answered a couple or made phone calls or text or emailed them or something, but I never got any positive response. So anyway.
Got it. What can we help you with today?
The drop valve on the Volvo, remember?
Yes.
Yes.
Exhaust push rod connector thingy or whatever thingamabob. Give me the technical terms of that. I'm going to write it down here.
I posted the whole thing. So let me read to you exactly what's on top of that bulletin, and make sure that you've got the.
I'm not familiar with your website or anything, sir.
I will read you what this says, and then you can write it down, and then the Volvo dealer can look this up in their system, because this is an official Volvo bulletin. And let me see if I've got that right here. I think I've got it right here. Of course I do. There it is. Okay, so this is a field service bulletin, and it is exhaust rocker compression brake piston repair.
Exhaust rocker compression repair.
Brake piston repair, yes.
Brake piston repair.
Yep.
We got it.
And if they want... Yes. Well, I can give you the group, the number, and the release, so they could probably go in and look that up, I believe. It was released on January 1st, 2017. It's Group 213.
Not that long. Okay.
Yeah, well, this is for the older trucks. January 1st, 2017. That's okay. This will cover that. The release is
right after.
Right.
Next year.
The release is Group 213. The bulletin is number 2002, and it's the first release 01.
Okay.
So your Volvo dealer should be able to look that up.
Well, we were discussing that the other day, and but I'm not really worried about the cause. I mean, mechanical things are going to break eventually. I mean,
the reason you need to be concerned.
Prevent that
right.
happening next time. Yeah.
Right. That's why you need to understand
that's what happens. So yeah, exactly.
Almost guarantee you that's what happened. This is one of the things on a Volvo when you see a drop valve or a broken valve. 9 times out of 10, nobody has adjusted and Loctited these little assemblies the way they are supposed to be. So when you go in and run the overhead, as soon as you start the engine, if you don't have those little assemblies in adjustment, the overhead's right back out of adjustment. So what we do is we have them run a cylinder balance test before and then a cylinder balance test after, and then we look at the variation between the cylinders, and it should always get better after you run the overhead. Now, you've got a drop valve. You're not going to be able to run the cylinder balance test beforehand, but you can run one afterwards, and you should see single-digit variance between the cylinders when that truck's up and running if the overhead's set right.
Compression between the cylinders, compression rate.
It's similar. It's the variance of fuel, and I forget what else is all involved in that cylinder balance test. But it's making sure that all the adjustment, the compression, the fuel injection, everything is very similar between cylinders. And it's not unusual when somebody runs an overhead and they don't have these what I call exhaust plungers adjusted correctly. You'll fire the truck back up and you'll see 10, 12, 14% variance between the cylinders, which the dealer's going to tell you is acceptable, but it's not optimal. And if you continue to run that engine, in my experience with that variance, it only gets bigger, and it's only worse the higher the RPM goes, and you will have issues down the line. I like to see between 1% and 7% variance between those cylinders. When I get in the double digits, I'm having my guys look. They're going to tear that damn thing apart and figure out what in the hell is going on. And I'm a stickler for that cylinder balance test.
Hey, Joel.
That totally agrees with my old school mechanic brother-in-law who taught me that the compression doesn't matter as much as long as it's all even. You might have 100 pounds on a cylinder. You might have 90. It's an old school thing about what the compression is, as long as it's all even. Yeah.
Hey, Joel,
you want it balanced. That's correct.
Joel, the worst thing to hear from a shop, the phrase I hate hearing from any shop when it comes to mechanical stuff.
It's within spec.
It's within spec.
Yeah.
I hate that phrase.
I hate that too.
My God.
Yeah, because a lot of times you're right on the bad end of being within spec, and it creates all kinds of problems.
And
what they say it's within spec, I've learned to say, okay, show me what the spec is, and I want to make sure that I'm closer to the optimal rather than the back end of it. And then they're like, they're bitching and pissing and moaning because they got to go look everything up. And this is where I don't care that I'm in spec. I want to know where within the range I am. And if I'm not right down there towards the best end of the scale, you're going to keep working on my truck.
Well, and here's something else to think about. A lot of times we're talking about complicated systems. Let's take something like the front end. Well, the wear on this part is within spec, but just barely. Oh, okay, you'll be all right. Except for the fact that there are 4 other parts on the front end that are all just barely within spec. And when you add all 4 of them together, it's a problem.
Correct. Show me what perfect is.
Right.
Tell me what the range is, and then show me what perfect is and how close am I to perfect.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know. If you're going to tell me there's a range, you need to tell me how close I am to perfect.
Exactly.
I don't want to hear that there's a range because that means nothing.
Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, Raymond. Good stuff. We're going to cut you loose because the phone calls are hot and heavy. We got to keep moving here. We're going to go to California. Byron, welcome to the program.
Hey, have you ever found a different replacement for the Maxwell batteries or capacitors?
I haven't. Just that damn German thing, and they won't even talk to us.
Yeah, I've been looking online and I haven't come up with anything either. My Maxwell's about ready to check out. So
really, what's wrong with that? That thing's been tested over 1 million starts.
I don't know. I've had mine for probably 5 years, but last couple days when I bit the starter, it's all like almost like your solenoid kicks in or out. Today I had the battery cover off when I hit it this morning, and threw a spark for the line went to the starter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wish I had a solution. We keep looking, and if anybody hears of anything or finds anything, let us know. We're not finding anything yet. Hey, I was checking on text because I had a lot going on. Matt sent me a really good idea for the advertising thing. Mm-hmm. Ambulance chasing lawyers. That's a great idea.
Injured by a big truck. Call the hammer. Yeah, put it right on the truck. What the hell?
Oh my! Man, how crazy is that? But he's right. That would be the easiest sell.
Yeah, most likely. Well, you know what? If this would happen to take off, it might be a really good thing for the industry, because then the owner-operators or even the company drivers, if they wanted to make extra money by putting ads somehow in the trailer, they would have to be acutely aware of their safety score, because nobody would touch them if their safer system was bad. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, interesting.
Absolutely.
Joel, do you have any insight on ultracapacitors?
I think there was a company called Onyx. I can't remember, about 3 or 4 years ago. I wanted to try it, and I wasn't thrilled with the Maxwell, just based on some people that were giving me feedback that it had gone bad. And I thought, damn, if I spend the money on this thing, I want it to last. And so the other one out there, I don't know why Onyx comes to mind. It may not be right. But anyway, they would start engines up to 11 liters, and they would not guarantee it on a third. Now, I had my D11s at the time, and they were like, nope, that's 11.6 liters, so we're not gonna guarantee it. UPS uses them, and all their little delivery vans and stuff, and they work great. And they sent the white paper over about how much money UPS saved, but they would not go past 11 liter.
It's really not that complicated of a product. You could build one of these in your garage. I mean, you can go buy the parts and build an ultracapacitor yourself. And it's a little more complicated to get one with the right isolator on the battery and some other things. But I mean, it's not that hard of a product to produce. I just don't think that there's ever been enough demand for it because people don't understand it. But I think in today's world, having an ultracapacitor for a starter and then using all your batteries to be as deep cycle as possible for hotel loads makes a ton of sense.
I was thinking about that. So I made the decision, and instead of going with the ultracapacitor, I was going to put solar on to maintain my batteries to a higher level. When all the batteries are perfect, I never have a problem starting the truck, and at least that was the mindset. But you're right. If I could take a couple, maybe 3 of the batteries and then commit them to the deep cycle bank.
Yeah.
And then just have a single battery and an ultracapacitor to start the truck. At that point, it starts to make sense. And if I have a very good solar system on the truck, getting that ultracapacitor up to snuff to start the truck if everything's dead would be a hell of a lot easier too.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think it does make some sense. I'm like you. I've run into a bunch of problems finding anybody here in the States. I guess they're pretty popular in Russia and Scandinavia, where it's really cold all the time.
Oh yeah.
But I just haven't found anybody here that's really got their heart into the heavy duty commercial vehicle segment. It seems like they're either for locomotives and great big huge stuff that's in the cold,
right,
or delivery vans. They just kind of leave us out of the fold for whatever reason.
4 or 5 years ago at Louisville, right over in our section. I mean, they were like, 3 booths away from our section, there was a company building one of these just for a Class 8 truck. I stopped, I got their card, I talked to them. It was a good deal. I mean, it was every bit as good as the Maxwell. The price was pretty reasonable. But at the time, we had a strong partnership with Maxwell. And, our business model has always been we never represent competing products. Once we have a product that solves a problem, we really don't want to confuse the waters with, another product. Even though in virtually any product line, there's always several good options. You can say, well, we think this is the best, but we've always done that. So I thought, well, I'll keep the card. If anything ever happens, I don't keep cards. I'm not organized. I have no idea who that company was anymore.
I'll go back and try and look through my notes and stuff and see if I can find the name on the company that I had called, and maybe they've rolled out something new.
Yeah,
and I'll double check all that because it's been a while since I've chatted with them, so maybe I'll give them a call if I can find their stuff again.
Yeah, or the problem with Maxwell was the fact that Tesla bought them, so maybe I need to call up Elon and see if I can just convince him to start making the start module again.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go,
Byron. I wish we could have helped more, but I don't have any good answers for you.
Yep, I'll keep digging around on the internet too. I see Maxwell's got you can bolt like 6 of them together to get your 18 volt.
That's kind of what I mean.
Then you got
the module's kind of built like a battery with cells, so you can actually buy cells and kind of wire them together, and you could do this on your own. I just don't know what kind of results you're going to get.
Well, the biggest thing would you'd have to build a case to put them in, that would handle the vibration,
Yeah.
and keep it stable so it didn't ground out on something. But
exactly.
That'd be the deal.
All right. Well,
thank you.
We'll keep digging and we'll see what we can come up with. Let's go to Pennsylvania. Brian, welcome to the program.
Hey, guys. Did you hear about the latest nuclear verdict?
I don't know. Which one?
It blew the record out of the water. It was over $1 billion.
What? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. You gotta be kidding me.
And it was like, I'm pretty sure it was 2 fly-by-night companies. The guy rear-ended and killed somebody. He didn't even have a CDL. So, ouch. They awarded $1 billion, but nobody's ever getting $1 billion.
Exactly.
It's kind of ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Speaking of, this has nothing to do with hardly anything other than we're talking about crashes. I saw last night on the news some crash in California somewhere, and they've got it on video. It's at an intersection, and this Mercedes comes screaming through this intersection. It looks like he's going about 100 miles an hour. Killed 5 people.
Wow.
It was all you see afterwards, you see the car coming, and this is a crowded intersection, like 2 lanes coming from all kinds of directions, and there's cars everywhere. And you're thinking, how did this car even get going this fast in this place? But it goes through you can't even count how many cars it hits. And the next thing is just a fireball, and it killed 5 people.
What's going to happen here with the extreme environmentalists is they're going to look at this kind of like they look at it as guns. And so they're going to go right at Mercedes-Benz, and they're going to want to sue them for the way somebody drove their car. That's what's going to happen with this stuff. And, they I don't mean to make it an environmental rant, but some of these extreme folks on the side of the environmentalists, they're going to make these like guns, and they're evil. And anytime there's an accident, you're going to sue the manufacturer of the car.
Well,
along with the driver and the insurance company and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a good analogy. Think about they freak out. What do you need a 30-round magazine for? come on, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
A 30-round magazine is no big deal. So it holds a couple more bullets. So what? I can kill people with a single shot. I don't. But so now they're going to look at cars and go, why the hell do you need a car that goes 180 miles an hour?
It goes 100 miles an hour.
Right.
That's exactly what's going to happen, and that's going to be a weapon then, a weapon of mass destruction. That's exactly right. Yep. Definitely coming.
All right.
Unfortunately.
What else you got, Brian?
I'll probably catch a lot of hate for this, but I can really only think of one way to get at least half of everybody's attention with a trailer advertisement. I don't know how much perfume they sold, but the trailer-sized Kim Kardashian in her underwear on the side of the trailer. That works.
Sex sells, man. There's no way around that.
Yeah, but just remember, guys, anything that catches and holds somebody's attention is likely to cause an accident in this case.
Cause an accident. Yes, that's true as well. But anybody that has a very strong social media presence would stand a half a chance of making a trailer ad potentially working. But then you do have that problem of, they're going to try to go to their site right as they're driving and cause issues. So insurance companies are going to frown on that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I already had a question on the website, and I actually gave them a different answer. It's Jeremy and Tammy. The cars, they do exercise videos for truck drivers on YouTube. Show them how to use the X3 bar, how to use their truck and trailer as a gym. I mean, they do great stuff. And they just said, oh, should we not put this on the back of our trailer? Oh, no, hell no, you should. You're the perfect. If you own the trailer, hell yeah, put it back there. Advertise the hell out of your own stuff.
Yeah, they're already taking that liability and risk. Right. Yeah, your own stuff, your own business, absolutely, because your liability's already there.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, that's not that much of a leap. But for an outside company that has zero exposure or liability to transportation, why in the hell would you want to buy into that?
Right. Right. For these two, all of those downsides almost go away. You're going to spend money one time to put the ad back there, and it could stay there for years.
Yes.
Right. All those.
They are the example of who could make this work.
Yeah.
Right. They are the classic example of they could make this work. There are circumstances, exactly.
Let's think about this. I mean, if I really wanted to grow our business, and I really don't, I'm happy with our growth rate. Sometimes growing too much is just as much of a problem as not growing enough. And I don't want to grow a lot. I mean, I want a nice, slow, steady growth. But this wouldn't even be a bad idea for me. For me to just go directly to owner-operators, because I have access to them all, and say, I'll pay you this much to put my ad on the back of your trailer. And my ad actually would work, because the market I'm going after is truck drivers, and a lot of truck drivers will see those ads if I get them on enough trailers.
Yeah, you've absolutely targeted your market, and it's kind of captive, and it makes sense. I'm doing something similar with my new truck that's coming through. I work with Dana and I work with BASF, and they want to put a logo on there. I'm going to trucking shows. I'm going to conferences and events with this thing, and that instance, it makes sense. Going down the road, 99% of the people that see that thing won't know what the hell it means or even care.
Right.
But trucking specific, an owner-operator is going by and he sees that and he's interested in fuel miles. He's going to know everything he needs to know just by looking at the side of the truck. So in my instance, it works, in yours and the cars, but in general, the public perception is so negative, and the liability associated with it, it's a tough entry for sure.
It is. Watch this one. Watch me screw up my whole idea. Because I just had a brilliant idea. On the back of my trailer, not only am I going to put the ad, I'm going to put a giant UPC symbol that they can just scan with their phone as they go by and download our app.
Yeah, there you go.
boy.
Shoot.
Come on, no, you stole the poor guy's idea. Come on.
You get Garmin. You get Garmin to make a dash cam that automatically scans codes for you while you're going down the road.
That's right.
Yes,
that's
awesome how that
idea.
works.
What an
That's
awesome
how that
idea.
works.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
The lawyers are salivating.
This guy's probably better. This guy's probably better off to wait for like a year or 6 months and go to an auction and get a bunch of storage trailers and just park them in fields by the interstate.
That actually, that becomes a billboard, and it is more effective. That's why billboards are effective, and that's why billboards work. Or, the advertising on a vehicle. I have seen some places where it works locally. Go to Vegas. My God, there's,
Yes.
a gazillion vehicles driving around Vegas with ads all over them. But that works. It's local. People will see those ads over and over and over.
Right. When I was delivering furniture on the West Coast, and I would make my first drop up in Santa Rosa and then go down to San Jose, with all the Oakland, San Francisco traffic. During rush hour, they've got a little cabin chassis with an actual billboard mounted on it like a Sprinter, and they pay these people to set in rush hour traffic with the bill. That makes sense.
It does.
Because somebody's staring at that thing forever. But that same trailer running across Nevada, are you really getting your money's worth out of that? Who the hell's going to see it,
Exactly.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Anything else, Brian?
I've heard you for years talk about how the difference between 4 mile a gallon and 6 mile a gallon is way bigger than 8 and 10. And I thought, come on, that's bullshit. 2 miles a gallon, 2 miles a gallon. And after I called the other week there about the whole Volvo versus glider thing, I said, well, I ought to put some numbers to this, and maybe that'll kind of motivate me one way or another, make me less conflicted. And I was like, oh, no shit, he's right. It's like more than twice as much money. So for me to go to 8 to 10, it would save me. I figured 100,000 miles at $4 a gallon. It would save me $10,000 a year. But I'm like, what? It's gonna cost me more than $10,000 a year to buy a brand new truck. But I know that's not really a fair comparison, but it kind of
no, it is. It is absolutely a fair comparison. The thing that a lot of folks are missing, especially guys that are coming out of those years, your 2011, 12, 13, where we had a lot of emission problems, and this is the private message that I got. So we've got a guy, I think he was in a 2014 Volvo, the 336. Rear end ratio, and he is spending 30 cents a mile to keep the emission system repaired.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now here's what we know. So you've heard me say before, my brother claims, and I completely believe this, that when you spec that same truck, if it's spec'd right, you're going to reduce that 39%, at least in his case, because 336 in the setup he had is just awful.
Yeah.
And so he went into a Volvo dealer, and everybody's heard me say that I think anytime you get over 1,350 RPM as your average RPM when you're cruising, you start to get into the danger zone as far as emission system durability and pricing. So he took his truck to a Volvo dealer, said, I want to re-ratio this. And they ran a 1-hour simulation on a computer over various terrain. And they come back and they said, oh, you're only going to save, 3% in fuel. And he went from 336 to 264. And I looked at the numbers, and they were exactly right. That 3% was spot on. And he's like, it's not enough to do it. But hold on a second. We missed some pieces here.
Right.
So when you looked at his average RPM over this course, and it was at 63 mile an hour, and they'd done it with several different weights, his average RPM with the 336 was 1,415 RPM, well within the danger zone. With the 264, it was 1,115.
Wow.
So he should be able to expect that 39% drop. So if he's spending $30,000 a year on his emission system, he may cut that to $18,000, probably less. Now add that to his $3,000 or $4,000 in fuel savings. It really starts to make sense. The other part they didn't explain to him, and they probably didn't know, was they took the exact same parameters from the 336 truck and applied it to the 264 truck. If you optimize those parameters, put the gentle shift in it, the rate of acceleration on cruise control, you take off some of the lower gear speed limitations, get rid of the eco torque setting that was in there, I think you gain another 3%. So now you're looking at 6% fuel, which still doesn't cover completely the cost of the ratio swap on its own in 1 year. But with the emission savings, it more than covers it. Unfortunately, the dealership just didn't have the knowledge to tell him, here are the other benefits associated with this.
Hey, Joel, let's talk about another one. You know, when we look at fuel economy and savings, it's pretty straightforward. The only savings is the fuel. You just calculate it. Okay, their savings is the fuel.
Yes.
When we start talking about improving maintenance outcomes, you have to look at the savings on maintenance, but you also have to look at the downtime. That is a loss of revenue. Yeah.
It is huge, the downtime. And that's without even considering the downtime. So I know that, historically, we've always said on the show that, a ratio change, it probably isn't worth it. You damn well better be looking at the power curve and the gear ratios and the parameters to go along with that, because it could very well be worth it if they're struggling with emission issues. There is no doubt. Absolutely no doubt, and this is why I kind of wanted to talk about available versus required horsepower. There is no doubt that piston speed impacts emissions. Absolutely no doubt about it. It's why all of the manufacturers are going down sped. It's something we didn't understand right out of the gate, and we were putting traditional gear ratios on emission engines, and we were having all kinds of problems. Yeah. So, we really have to rethink what we're telling folks. Don't re-ratio that truck; it ain't worth it. We need to ask a few more questions. What's your emission system and maintenance cost look like? Yeah. And if it's very high, and we've got traditional gears, there's a real good chance we make this work.
Good point.
Well, that's an awesome segue, Joel, because that's actually what I claimed I was calling about. I called about reducing the cost of a gear change, and it kind of every time somebody calls about spending megabucks on a gear change, I say, well, just double down on the megabucks, and you could half the cost of the gear change, sort of. And what I'm talking about is doing a 6x2 conversion the way you talk about, or as close as we're going to do as a retrofit without going crazy. Well, now you only have one gear to change, so
there's that. The other thing that I've seen that makes this way less expensive actually is, get online, start looking at salvage yards, and you can buy cutoffs that are low mileage that will not need to be, and just swap the housings and everything.
Right.
It's pretty straightforward and easy. And I had a buddy that done that for like $2,000. He done the work. And he went from a 336 to a 247, and his results were just phenomenal.
I'll bet.
Realistically, for real, picked up a mile a gallon. The truck was faster because it was running in the torque curve. It pulled better, and everybody thinks, if you go from this ratio to that, there's no way it can pull. It depends on the engine's power curve and how the parameters are set up.
Right.
But nobody thinks about that. Right. We all have pounded in our head, get it in top gear, and we want this ratio to pull a hill, which is complete nonsense.
It is nonsense.
And that when you apply that logic to today's engines, you're going to pay a heavy price for doing that.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, is that correct that the full 6x2 option, like you talk about, is like $20,000?
No.
I didn't think so.
It may list. It may list for $20,000. You will not, from Volvo, you will not pay that out the door. It may come up on the list price. Yeah, because the list prices are just absolutely stupid. And, of course, they want to show you what a big discount they give you. You know what I mean? But
Right.
it will not be that much. You know what? I'll see. I'll try and talk to a couple different salespeople at dealerships I know, and I'll see what the actual cost to most customers. What my brother pays for trucks is not going to be realistic as to what an owner-operator pays, because he buys groups of trucks now. So I kind of hate to throw those numbers around, because they're not. You're going to go into the dealer and say, "Hey, this guy pays this," and they're going to go, "There's no way in hell." You know what I mean? So I'll talk to them and see on an individual on a one truck order. But I know it's not $20,000. It is more expensive than a 6x4, slightly more, right. But it is not $20,000.
I'm surprised not everybody's spec'ing it, because I mean you're saving fuel even if you do run heavy a lot, right?
Listen, here's the problem with this, and we've done such a poor job with 6x2s in the past, and there is one simple rule that, for whatever reason, it never made it here to the United States. Everybody was unaware of it. And once you understand this rule, and then you start to understand kingpin weight transfer to make this work, they work beautifully. So the idea is to get 25% of the gross combination vehicle weight on the drive axle. And for that to happen, when you're axle down, you have to have a smart axle that can bias weight. And that's the trick. People that go to a 50-50 split, you're going to have tire wear and traction issues, and that's what killed the whole 6x2 concept. A very careful, skilled driver can make it work, but your average Joe Blow can't, and so that poisoned the entire market for the 6x2. The other piece of the puzzle is you have to, or you should have, a non-torque reactive suspension. Very common in Europe to have a weight biasing lift axle and a non-torque reactive suspension. Here in the United States, we're just like, oh, screw it, pull the drive shaft out and slide that one forward and let's go. Does not work. It takes more sophistication than that to make it work to the level that people are expecting. Once you get everything right, they're phenomenal. They ride better. The fuel mileage everything is better in an on-highway application. Even the traction potential is better because when you look at percentage of gross on that drive axle, anytime you're over 25%, your traction potential is better than a 6x4 with a 50-50 split.
Joel, now that when you explain how we've solved the problems, and like we said, we thought, back in 07, 08, this was a great idea. And for the right driver, it was. Made a lot of sense. But it wasn't a plug and play for the industry kind of thing. But now that they've solved all those problems, why do we even build 6x4s? They just really don't make sense.
Well, here's the thing. Once you poison the waters, people remember this for a long time. And so it's very hard with fleets. And Henry Albert's got his Freightliners version out, and they've done a good job on this one. Hats off to them. They've done a pretty good job. Now, I'm a Volvo guy, so obviously I think my Volvo system's a little better, but it's a damn good system. Right. And we needed that. We needed to have let's face it, Freightliner's the 500-pound gorilla in the room. They control the market. They're out with a decent system now. Their system before this, it sucked. Yeah. It was horrible.
Yeah,
now you take a guy like Henry.
It was horrible. It didn't take off.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't catch on at all.
You could take a guy like Henry. He could drive the hell out of that system. Smart guy, understand he had to do this at this time and this at that time. Most guys don't have that skill level. Henry could make it work. Nobody else could. So it's back to the drawing table. I've been working with Volvo on that system for over 10 years on this adaptive loading, giving them feedback and different algorithms to make that weight biasing work, and different suspensions so we didn't have frame rise when we were light, maintaining contact patch. We went through so much. I learned so much on that. It was just absolutely incredible. But what it boiled down to is 25% of gross combination vehicle weight on the drive axle. And once I learned that, and I learned it through an online conversation with a guy from Sweden that said, "Oh, well, you need to know this little fact." I was like, holy shit, we've been working on this for 10 years, and it's this simple. And sure enough, it was.
It's this number. Yeah. I wonder does anybody know what percentage of Mesilla Valley's fleet is 6x2?
I heard that they started to go away from it. They were having some tire wear and traction issues. The international system, it did have some weight biasing, but it was after ABS detected slip. Oh. And it really doesn't do you a whole lot of good once you break traction to start to it was an improvement, but it wasn't good enough. And going down the road, like I had talked about forever, and the reason I got away from low rolling resistance and wide base tires on 6x2s is you had that tire overspeeding, what John would call it in the racing industry, and I called it torque snap or torque induced slip. So the driver may or may not notice it's slipping, but it's slipping. You put a hub meter on the dead axle and a hub meter on the drive axle, and you get out in hilly terrain, you'd see it up to 10%. Yeah. So that's how much they were slipping. That's why they would wear so fast. And so there was a hell of a lot of work and research that I spent years on that. And I think now we have a system that, honestly, it's just awesome. It kicks ass. Yeah, I can't wait to get you in it and drive it, and you will feel it, seat of the pants and hands on the steering wheel. You're going to know the second you put your ass in that truck, there's something special here. Yeah.
That slippage explains a lot, because when we did start to see the tire wear on the 6x2s, it didn't make sense. I'm looking at him like that just doesn't even make sense. We had one guy who tried, and he called me before he tried it, and he knew the risk. He wanted to try. He had converted to a 6x2, so we put trailer tires on the dead axle, which makes total sense, the lowest rolling resistance possible. Yep. He said, well, what would happen if I put these on my drive axle too? And I said, well, they're not designed to handle torque, so I don't think the outcome's going to be very good. And he said, well, I'm going to try it. 30,000 miles. That was it.
Yeah. Just completely wipes them off. Yes.
30,000 miles. Those tires were gone.
Well, remember our tractive effort and all that stuff. So think about divide in power when you have slippage versus just keeping it right on that. There's a big difference there. So the suspension plays a huge part too, because everything in American trucking suspension-wise is a race to the bottom. We want it light. We want it cheap.
Yeah.
So we have these damn torque reactive Z-spring suspensions. In a 6x4 application, that torque rise kind of cancels each other out. In a 6x2, because the lift axle, there's no power, there's no cancellation. So when that frame rises, you're unloading the drive axle and you're pushing the steer axle into the ground. So now you're pulling and pushing. So it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, Brian, we're going to cut you loose. Have a great weekend. We're going to move on because the calls keep coming. And I said we'd stay here till we got to them all. So, Dwayne in Texas, welcome.
Hello.
What can we help you with today?
Can you hear me?
We can.
I was calling to see if the max mileage, is it good for gas engines?
I don't have any experience with it on gas. Everything I've tested has been diesel. The results we get back, the testimonials from people, I guess, on some gas engines, it's absolutely incredible.
Okay. And I think it's supposed to be 1 ounce per 30 gallons on a gas engine. Do you need to be pretty exact on that, or is there any wiggle room?
There's wiggle room, but the one thing I would say is don't overdose it. If anything, if you're going to, be off a little bit, I'd rather be under. It's a fairly expensive product, and putting in more does no good whatsoever. So stick pretty close to the dosing, and if anything, I would just go under, because it's expensive, and a little bit more can end up costing a lot more and not give you very good results.
Well, the main thing I was concerned about, I'll underdose, that sounds better. I was just afraid it might break something. Having it too strong.
We've had somebody that got confused and actually had been running double the dose for a long period of time, and it didn't hurt a thing, other than his wallet.
And can I buy it from you, or do you need to go to Pittsburgh Power? Or where?
You can buy it on our website. I mean, if you want to ship it, we'll ship it to you. Or if you're in town, you can stop by and pick it up. But I'm
a ways away.
Yeah, we could ship it to you. You can go to our website, or you can go to Pittsburgh Power's website and look up all the places where you can physically just walk in and buy a gallon.
Okay. I've kind of looked at that before, and if you go somewhere that you can walk in and pick it up, they mark it up quite a bit.
A lot of times that happens. Area. Yeah, a lot of times that happens.
I mean, I understand people have to make a profit. I understand that.
Well, and
the next question I have.
Yeah, one of the reasons we're able to keep it pretty reasonable is because our store, isn't necessarily our business model. The store is there for convenience, so that when we find these products, it's easy to go get them all in one place. So we are actually on almost everything that's in our store. We're really competitive on price.
Okay. The next question, what is good for acid reflux disease?
The only thing that will fix acid reflux disease is a change in your diet.
Okay.
You can't eat the standard. If now, not everybody who eats the standard American diet suffers from acid reflux, but a lot of people do. It's really, really common. Acid blockers and PPIs are one of the best-selling classes of drugs in the world. I've never known anybody to ever fix it properly eating the standard American diet. In fact, everything we do actually makes the problem worse. All it does is cover up the symptoms of the problem, but it makes all the problems worse. When we, block stomach acid or dilute stomach acid or weaken stomach acid, we're destroying your health. We need to have strong stomach acid, and every one of their solutions does the opposite. So the only way is you have to change your diet to some sort of a paleo-based diet, and then if the diet alone doesn't fix it, many times it does. Many times all you have to do is change your diet. But if it doesn't, we have a protocol and a kit for this that works every time. It's one of our most successful protocols.
Okay. What if you have a hiatal hernia? Does that need to be repaired before you can?
Maybe. And what I usually recommend for people, if they have a hiatal hernia, is that they consult with a chiropractor, not a doctor. Let the chiropractor see if they can fix it. A lot of times they can. Yeah.
And if I want to find there's good and bad in everything. How can I find a good chiropractor? I mean, I know there's good mechanics, bad mechanics.
Absolutely. And this is a great question. And I'm a big believer in, if I'm going to go pay somebody for anything, I want to find the best people I can. And the way you do it is the same every time. You do a lot of research. You call a lot of people. You ask a lot of questions. You try to find people that have, try to find reviews from other people. And then you whittle it down to a couple that look promising, and then you go try them. And then it's just pure experience. If it works good, you found the right person. If it doesn't, you keep trying until you find the right person.
On the right diet, I think I've heard you say before, if you just eliminated grains from your diet, that would be a step in the right direction.
Sometimes when it comes to this issue, that's all that's required. You don't have to make the full change to paleo. And I'll tell people, if you want to try this, try eliminating grains first. And sometimes that's the only step you have to take.
Okay. Well, procedure that doctors do to get rid of a hiatal hernia, is that a good idea if you have a hiatal hernia?
I've seen some that require it, yeah. But I always say, let's check and see if this can be manipulated, if we can, fix this without surgery and procedures. But if it is required, then you go get it done, and it's usually not that big of a deal.
Okay. And I'm in Texas. Right now it is like 10 to 12. If I wanted to get your app and listen to it, what time does it start?
Yeah, we go live every weekday at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, 8 Pacific.
Okay, so what time is it there now?
It is 9:47 Pacific Time right now.
Golly. Wow. That's a big. That's surprising because it's 10 to 12 here.
Oh, but trust me, we run a company and our employees are all over the country. So we have employees on East Coast, we have employees on Central, Mountain, Pacific, and it's an issue.
Yeah,
it's hard to manage your day when everybody's on a different schedule.
Man, it would be. I thought. Well, I just took it for granted everybody was like an hour apart. I didn't know it was.
Yeah, it's
at least in the continental United States. I thought it would be just.
No, and then if you want to get crazy, Hawaii's another 3 hours. If you're in Hawaii, you are 6 hours behind East Coast time. That's the whole workday, just about. Yeah.
Well, I learned a few things today.
We deal with it all the time. I'll pick up the phone at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and call one of our employees on the East Coast, and I'm like, why aren't they answering? And then I realize, well, it's 6 o'clock. They're done.
And I need to just look up letstruck.com app or what?
Yeah.
What app I need to look for?
If you go to either one of the app stores, just put in Let's Truck. If you do it as one word with no space, it works better. Either way, you'll get the app. But if you do it Let's Truck with no space, it should be the number one hit.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your information and have a nice weekend.
You're welcome. Have a great weekend. Let's grab another call. We're off to Texas this time. Paul, what's on your mind today?
Well, it's 10 to 5 tomorrow morning in New Zealand.
That's right. Hey, that was my plan. I was going to move to New Zealand and I could do my show nice and early in the morning.
Oh, real early. Yeah. You'd be back on that midnight shift.
Yeah, just about. I know. Yeah.
So, I did have a question for Joel, but it's sort of been asked already. I was curious on the difference in price between the 6x4 and the 6x2. So I'll be interested to know as well.
Yeah, you'll definitely pay a premium for it. And where people get beat up on a 6x2 right now, and we talked about the Poison Marketplace's resale value, it's going to be slightly more expensive. And then you take a pretty good hit resale right now. I'm hoping now with Henry out in the marketplace doing very well with his 6x2, I'm going to be coming in with my new one, and I expect it to perform to a very high level. I'm hoping we start to change some attitudes and some thought processes in regards to the 6x2, and maybe we can start to turn that secondary market around, because the secondary market starts with Kevin's crowd, basically. These are the guys that are going to buy the trucks used, and they need to be confident that we've got this right now, and it needs to be explained to them why it's right. And I think we can do that. I think, I've been working on this long enough. I am willing to bet that I can stand on a stage and I could be peppered with questions from 100 people, engineers, drivers, whoever. And I think I can answer just about anything that's thrown at me in regards to a 6x2 and why it works now versus why it didn't back then.
Yeah, well, I had my last truck for 8 years. I've had this one for just over 9, and I'm going to keep it for a couple more. So I don't really care about the resale value, to be honest.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
When I
We got it.
what I get for it, yeah.
Right. We had it figured if you are going to trade sooner than 4 years, that currently in the resale market, it would kill you. Don't go 6x2.
Yep.
Anything over 4 years, you're going to save enough in fuel that it's more than worth it. And if you go out 8 years, I mean, it's a no-brainer at that point.
Yeah. Because, like, you see the European market, and they'll do a lot. They do a lot of truck and trailer. And you'll see a 6x2 truck, and it's got a 5-axle trailer behind it with 2 lift axles on it. And
right.
I'm not sure what weight they're running at, but
well, sometimes
I'm pretty sure parts of Europe have worse weather than they do over here. So.
In some parts, you'll see a lot of just straight single axles pulling, multi-axle trailers.
Right. Right. The example I think that is best to look at is Scandinavia, and they don't like it when the very short wheelbase 6x2s come up there because I forget what this is called. It's after an engineer that figured this out. But the shorter the wheelbase, the more sensitive the truck is to steering wheel inputs, and the more likely it is to jackknife.
Yes.
So in continental Europe, they don't have all the snow and the bad weather that they see in Scandinavia, and it's a more urban environment. So they have these very short trucks so they can get around. And then they come up into Scandinavia in the wintertime, and they're very problematic. And they're actually pushing for American-style length laws in the rest of Europe in order to really make the 6x2 more stable for wintertime haulage. Of course, in Russia and Scandinavia, they run a straight truck with a trailer behind it, and a lot of those are 6x2s with a really long wheelbase. And you're right, they'll do heavy haul with a 6x2 combination like that, up to like 130,000 pounds or something, and go over mountain passes and in snow and have no problem at all. But they've understood what the target value was on that axle in order to keep the traction right. And for whatever reason, we just completely missed that over here. So,
Joel,
knowing what we know now will make it work.
You know what you reminded me of then? When I first got into trucking, right across from our terminal was the PIE terminal. Do you remember some of their cab-over Freightliner day cabs? Those must have been the shortest wheelbase truck ever built. I used to think that if you hit the brakes too hard, if you were bobtailing, the thing would fall right over on its face. Yep,
absolutely.
So
I remember
short.
them.
Holy cow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, and very, very susceptible to winter weather conditions in terms of jackknife, yes.
Because New Zealand is very heavy Kenworth user, which are built in Australia. But at the moment, a friend of mine, I was talking to him the other day, he said if you were to order a brand new Kenworth at the moment, it's probably going to be between 18 months and 2 years before you get it. So a lot of people, if you want a truck right now in New Zealand, a lot of people, the option is Scania or Volvo because you can get it a whole lot quicker. So,
I have a feeling that's going to change. Those build slots are going to start opening up.
It will, yeah.
But Australia, the Kenworths they build, they still build them. They don't do it like the production. Well, it's a production line, but it's a lot more hands-on than automated over there in Aussie. So eventually they'll catch up. So
got it. All right, we're going to
one other.
Oh, too bad! I already hit the button. We're going to move on. We're going to go to Virginia this time. Tony and Becky. I'm sorry. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin. How are you today?
Good. What can I help you with?
Back in June, middle of June, Becky had to go to the ER. She thought she had cellulitis, and it wound up being an infection in her foot. She had broke it when she was 20 in 2 places, and it got infected. She was in the hospital.
What part of the foot?
Go ahead. What part of your foot?
It's, it was a couple of different things going on. One, my sugar has been running high. I've not been doing keto like I should.
Okay.
I had a bug bite on the top of my foot, like the
what part of the foot?
The top of my foot, kind of the...
Okay, so
like behind my pinky toe.
Yeah, so we're talking about kind of like a skin infection or a wound that won't heal. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, no, actually, I got the bug bite and it tunneled down instead of like spreading out. And I went to the wound care. They packed it, and then the next time I went back, it had healed over. And instead of them checking it to make sure that it had actually healed, he just said that it wouldn't have healed if there was still infection in there, even though I was saying, it's still red, it's still sore, still a little puffy. They let it go. And apparently I had been fighting off infection the whole time, and it just kept tunneling down until it got to the bone.
That's what I was trying to get to. So we're actually talking about the bone itself has become infected.
Yeah, I have osteomyelitis.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get to. Are they giving you any recommendations for treatment?
They have me on 2 different antibiotics right now, and having to do a PICC line at home.
Since the 14th.
Okay.
And they want to start the hyperbaric chamber.
Okay. So this is one of those cases where, I'm very, very cautious about antibiotics, but this is one of those cases where it's necessary. You have to. Along with that, though, you want to double and triple down on probiotics and fermented foods. Otherwise, we're going to solve the infection problem, and you're going to have 6 other problems created by dysbiosis, because when we're talking bone infections, I don't know which 2 antibiotics you have, but I'm pretty sure they're broad spectrum, powerful antibiotics for a bone infection, and they will wipe out your gut bacteria. So we've got to really, really work hard on fermented foods, and I would be taking 2 different probiotics. So 2 different probiotics, one soil-based, one traditional, and as many fermented foods as you can eat every day. We've got to try to fight back against these antibiotics, or we're going to see all kinds of other problems. As far as the treatment itself, they're actually on the right track. The 2 antibiotics in the hyperbaric chamber is probably about the best you can do for this. And then we also want to make sure all your nutrient levels are as high as possible. You should really be focusing on really nutrient-dense food and supplementing anywhere where we need to make up.
Yeah, they said that my vitamin D was an 11.
Ooh, are you supplementing at all?
Well, I wasn't.
We started using. I've been getting the BioD emulsification, the higher dose.
Okay.
I've been taking it for about over a year. So I had a little stockpile, and I told her she needed to start taking it, which was one of the questions I was going to ask you.
Absolutely.
They're recommending 10,000 IUs.
Well,
they're recommending 10,000 IUs, and I've been taking 10 drops of the higher one, so that's 20,000. But they're saying 10. I wanted your recommendation on how much she should do to get that level up.
10's enough, especially if you're using our BioD or BioDK emulsion. I would probably get her the BioDK emulsion to make sure, because if we're going to load if we're going to load in this much vitamin D, and we need to balance it with the K. When you're going to supplement this heavy on vitamin D, we need to make sure we're also supplementing vitamin K. So get the BioDK, 5 drops a day. Will get us right there at about 10,000, and that's going to be a good level. And then after 30 days, I would go test it. I would test that number. We need to get her vitamin D number up over 75. That is a huge factor when it comes to infections. Had your vitamin D level been at 75 or more, you may not have gotten the infection in the first place.
Well, they did an MRI in the hospital, and they're going to do another MRI before they start the hyperbaric chamber to see how well the antibiotics have done this far.
Good. Yeah, they're on the right track. So it's a matter of letting them do their thing, but you need to get really proactive in doing your thing too, getting your vitamin D levels up, getting all of your nutrient levels up. If you're not eating...
Now, they also said...
Go ahead.
They also said her vitamin C and her vitamin B6 levels were low. And the recommendation was, instead of taking a high single dose of vitamin C, to take 3 times a day, 250 milligrams. Wanted to see. I hadn't seen anything in the store, but I know you have some C vitamins in there.
We do, and if you're going to be buying it in the store, you can go ahead and get it in the store. They are correct. You can't if you try to high dose vitamin C, it will tear up your stomach. In fact, if they think vitamin C would help this a lot, I'm wondering why they just don't give her a vitamin C injection.
That'd be a question we can ask them next week.
Yeah, that's when we want to do high dose vitamin C, and there are some things that actually respond really well to high dose vitamin C. When we talk high dose, it has to be injected. I mean, you just can't consume enough of it without tearing up your stomach. So I would ask them, look, we'll supplement some vitamin C, but can we do an injection as well? B6 is easy to get. I mean, there's tons of supplements with lots of B6.
Okay, he did say not to do a B complex because her other B vitamins were good levels.
Yeah, you know what?
To get the single dose.
I complain about doctors a lot, but these guys sound like they've got it going on. I agree. I wouldn't do a B complex either. I would do a straight B6.
Okay. Now, the vitamin C, I know you sell at least one form in the store, but which one would you recommend when I go to place the order?
You know what? I'm going to have to go check myself. I'm actually not sure. We don't normally deal a lot with vitamin C because, again, I'd love to get that in the diet. This is a case, though, where kind of doubling down is going to make sense. So let me go see what we do have.
Now, I know I've got some stuff called Emergency, and I think it's 1,000 I use.
Yeah, don't do that. Do our BioC Plus. BioC Plus 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah, the BioC Plus 1,000. And I just checked, and
what about B?
It is in stock.
B6. Okay, and what about the B6? Do you carry that?
Let me see.
I just know you have a higher quality of supplements in the store.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we carry a straight B5. Let me check to see if we could, or B6, I mean. What am I thinking? Let me check to see if we could order it. I don't think we carry one, but I think we might be able to special order it.
All right. I'll just call.
Yeah, check
and
with
place the order.
Yeah, check when you call. Angie's probably listening. Angie, can you find out about getting just a straight B6 from Biotics? I don't see one in our store. I don't think we carry one, but I'm positive they have a straight B6. We'll find out for you. And Angie, if you could, once you find out, reach out to Tony and let him know. We'll reach out to you and find it for you.
That sounds great. I appreciate it, Kevin.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. All right, got a couple more still. We're going to head off to Wyoming. Stephen, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, I just started listening to that book, The Island of Jekyll, the Creature of Jekyll Island.
Yeah.
And so far, I love that book. The two things so far, the part in the beginning that he goes back and forth as both characters when he's explaining my money in the bank is an asset and a liability to the bank.
Yeah.
And how the bank has no money. Like when he does that, that was, I don't know, some reason I really loved how we went through that.
Maybe, I prefer reading to listening. The only time I listen to books is when I drive. I can't listen any other time. But I don't know. I just either need to take a break and give my brain a break or something. I'm struggling reading this book. I'm almost wondering if I should try listening to it and see if it's any better.
Yeah, maybe. It was definitely interesting, him going through that part. And then the other thing was, I'm from Maine, so we go to New Hampshire every now and then for Laconia Bike Week. And that hotel, the White Mountains Hotel that meeting took place in Brentwood, is still there, still functioning. It's a beautiful hotel in a beautiful location. And that room where that meeting occurred is still all set up. They've got plaques and everything, so you could really see that meeting was about. So if you ever find yourself in the New Hampshire area, if you've never been there before, it's really cool to check out.
I love New Hampshire. I love that whole area in the fall. One of my best vacations, it was our first RV vacation. Right after we bought our first RV, we went and spent about 6 weeks in New Hampshire during the fall, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, so if you're ever in September, October, you're up there, go check out that mountain in that season. It's a beautiful scenery, and that hotel is just something to go see. It's huge, and it's still so old. So it's really cool to check out if you're ever up there.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And if I could mention something about I ordered a 2018 Freightliner Cascadia. We have a big bunk. So my wheelbase is a 324-inch wheelbase, and we also haul cars for a living, an enclosed trailer. So we have a 3-foot nose cone on the front, and I never put all this into perspective when I ordered the truck with this 6x2. And right now, the fifth wheel, the closest I can get it to the bunk is the fifth wheel is almost on it's just in front of that rear axle, and the weight difference. We had definitely had traction problem when I had super singles on here, and I couldn't deal with the traction issues, so I took the super singles off and put the duals on it. But I guess I had to do it again with that trailer having to be so far back. It's working good now with the duals, but what a difference. I got to imagine it would be better if that fifth wheel was much further forward.
Or if your live axle was in the back and the dead axle was in the front. And the kingpin issue you're describing right now is part of the problem we have in the United States. In Europe, they have a very deep kingpin setting, and the way that the fifth wheel and the axles interact make a big difference.
Hey, Joel, I know this just doesn't make any sense for fleets whatsoever, but have you looked at the sliding kingpin idea?
Yeah, I did. I was actually going to have them build my next trailer with it. There were some, what happened actually is they have a shortage of engineers, and they have to do kind of an engineering study before they put it together, and they just have anybody to do it.
No way.
So I couldn't get it built. It's there, and the guy I was working with was excited about the possibility of doing it, and they just didn't have an engineer available to do the work to put it in.
The project that I looked at and just never got around to completing. I really wanted to work on the idea of a single axle tractor with a tri-axle trailer or a spread. I was going to play around with a couple different configurations. And honestly, I was going to play around with a spread, and I was really, really close to getting the same amount of weight on 4 axles that we currently get on 5. I mean, I was really close when you cut the weight of the vehicle itself down, because you get rid of all those components, and then the way it was to finally make it work, to get all your weight spread out right, you needed a sliding fifth wheel and a sliding kingpin. And between the two of them, man, you could really customize where you put the weight.
You could, but it requires a lot of skill from the driver in order to get things right, and that's the barrier right there. I mean, you're practically an engineer at that point. Getting kingpin weight to transfer with 2 sliding mechanisms, that it becomes a skill, no doubt.
I know. We'd probably have to build an app, to do all the math for you or something.
Yeah. Well, in today's digital dashboards, they could probably build that right into the dashboard and tell you exactly where you had to put everything nowadays. A few years ago, that wasn't possible, but it is nowadays. But that all being said, you were still at 4, where the setups that we're running today, like Henry has, like I have, we can get down to 3 and still carry a pretty good chunk of change. You're going to see my next truck coming out. I'm going to run the European wide tires on the front, so I can transfer some more weight up front. And we're going to see how much weight we can, out in the real world, get on this thing on 3 axles. And I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. I think we're going to get damn close to being able to put the national average for general van freight on 3 axles. I'm going to be damn close. It's going to take some componentry that we're not used to seeing, but it's going to be close.
Well, when you think about it, on 3 axles, we can gross 60,000, right?
Right, yeah. We should be able to go 20, 20, 20, yeah. So it's going to be close.
Yeah,
so.
We could gross 60,000. The equipment itself is significantly lighter, or there's some pretty big savings in there if you do it right, if you get the weight down. And you start looking at this and you're going, you know what? We could probably put like 40,000 payload on this.
Yeah, we're going to get in that 30 range anyway. And, when you're looking at general van freight, we're not running around at 80,000 pounds most of the time.
And when we are, it's usually the worst paying freight.
Right. I think they're saying 62 is the average for general van freight. Now, reefers, obviously a different story with reefers and specialty stuff, but, that 3-axle, high-capacity 3-axle setup, there are some challenges there, though, because we talk about axle flex. Now we're going to go to 3 axles, and dynamic whip comes into play. So we got to go to heavier axle walls, different suspensions. That's going to add some weight back into the equation. So it's not like we can go in and just lightweight the hell out of everything to load it up, because then we're going to deal with axle flex and a bunch of other bullshit. So it's I'll probably be talking with Mike a little bit on this when I really start digging into it hard on the trailer again. But there's definitely a lot of potential with that configuration if we do it.
Yeah, I agree.
And Joe, you're talking about running heavier steer axles now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have experience with the heavier steer axles because we got the big bump. So my steer axle, I think, is rated at 14.5. We're usually around 13.6 when we have a trailer attached. Just because I don't know if you're aware, but some states, it's not just based on the axle rating; it's also based on the width of the tire. And Oklahoma and what? Yeah. So I wasn't sure if like my tires that I run. If I go into Oklahoma, it's not legal. It's too narrow for the weight that I run. But these tires, I get 200,000 miles out of these steer tires with the wear bar that's on them. If I go to the tire that they want me to go to, it's more of a regional steer tire. It doesn't have that.
Well, here's the thing I'll tell you. Michelin just came out with a 365 80-22-5, and it has the decoupler groove on it, and they get super long life out of them in an over-the-highway application. They should clear up in your truck. If a 315 will clear, these will clear, and they have lower rolling resistance on them than anything on the market. They're a pretty awesome tire. So, I'm working on getting a set of those and getting them on my new truck. So if you follow my stuff at all out on Facebook, you're going to see them and you'll get the details on them. I don't have all the stuff right in front of me, but pretty damn cool tire. I've got high hopes for this thing because I've done all the things that you talked about when you go to the bigger sizes. They're regional. They're meant for dump trucks and cement mixers. They don't wear well out on the highway. You get all kinds of edge wear on them. I've tried it several times throughout the years and could never make it work. And I bumped up against some of the same stuff that you're talking about. Technically, if you're on an interstate highway, they should not be able to touch you. I know we occasionally will have the arguments with the Waymasters on this, and technically they have to offer you reasonable access to the interstate. So, you know, some places will let you go 10, 12, 14 miles off the interstate. But if we get the wider tire, there's benefits to it in terms of durability and fuel efficiency. And there is never a question if you're legal with that wider tire. I think at that point it starts to make sense. I just got to find out how long it's going to run and if we're going to get the funky wear out of it.
Hey, Joel, how much? What's the weight you're trying to get to on your front axle?
So I run a 14.6, and the way that I look at fifth wheel or kingpin weight, I'm looking for 25% to go forward, 75% goes to the back. When I am axle up under a moderate payload, depending where it falls on the trailer floor, I'm right out there at 14.6 at times. I can get a little bit over that on occasion, but generally I'm at 14.3 to 14.4.
You know, the Michelin XZA2 Energy will get you to 15.6.
It will, but it's not wide enough for the states that he talked about.
I forgot about that damn tire contact patch rule. That sucks.
Yep.
It really does.
Yep. There's a few states, and you know what? My brother, one of his drivers, just got popped for that somewhere, and I was like,
South
that's bullshit because they have to give him access. And he's like, well, you go argue with him then. He goes, I don't have time to do it, which he's right. I get it.
Right.
So you know he's looking for the bigger tire, or he's just going to change the lift logic on the axle so the weight doesn't transfer. Move the fifth wheel back a little bit, change the logic on the axle, and we won't see that loading up front. But you lose a lot of the benefit of the system then.
You know, it's a shame because that XZA2 Energy may be the best tire they've ever built. Things got incredibly low rolling resistance. It's just, they wear like iron. That is just an awesome tire. I use them on my coach because I love that tire. And it gets you to 15.6, which is plenty. But you're right, it doesn't have the patch size, the contact patch size for some of those states.
Yep. So this other side, this is a very similar tire to that. If you get on the Michelin site, look up that 365. I forget what the rest of the number, but it's the only 360. And I think Michelin is the only one with that 365 over here right now.
Yeah.
And it's pretty impressive, really. So some of the guys at Volvo are working with some of the guys at Michelin, and we're making sure that there's no clearance issues. And actually the weight capacity of the axle goes up because it's on an inset rim. And so my 14.6 axle, I think, goes to like 15.2.
Oh, nice.
And I think Volvo's willing to certify that for me and give me the sticker. I'm not 100% sure on that. They're talking with the guy that owns the front axle. So we gotta see on that. So there is that benefit as well, that we actually get a higher capacity front axle running that tire. So, pretty cool stuff.
Excellent. All right, we're going to go to Illinois. Grant, welcome to the program.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. Kevin and Joel. I've got a question that kind of relates to Joel's Open today about carbon and what gear you should run in. And I'd like your opinion on what gear you think I should run in.
Okay.
I run a car hauler, and I'm getting 6.12 on the 90-day, which is stellar for a car hauler. I drive at 60 miles an hour everywhere I go. I've got a pack car with a 264. Now, my gear ratio, my top gear is a 0.796. And my ninth gear is a 1.0. I run at ninth gear at 60 miles an hour at 1920. That's where I always operated. If I try to run in 10th gear, I'm down at 1050. Ninth gear's a little bit better. I'm guessing that's direct.
Mm-hmm. 1-to-1 is direct. So yeah, your second gear down will be direct. The 0.80 overdrive. Okay. So here's what I would do, and I've got this tool to do this, but I don't have it in front of me at the moment. We have a estimator that will put in car hauler. It gives you the frontal area and all the aerodynamic drag and everything associated with it, and then it will give me horsepower on the flat required to move that truck at 60 mile an hour at whatever weight. Do you know what your average gross combination vehicle weight is?
I'd say probably 70.
Okay, so here's the thing. This is a dynamic figure. It is never chiseled in stone, and this is the mindset that we get. I'll pick one gear and I'm just going to run there. So if you've got one car on your truck, you're going to run that thing in overdrive and it's going to do better. If you've got several cars on there, you'll run it in direct because horsepower demand's higher, and horsepower is RPM times torque divided by 5252. So the higher the RPM, you want to match available horsepower to what horsepower demand is. I know on a van trailer without a lot of aerodynamic aids, 65 mile an hour on the flat requires 280 horsepower. So then I can just multiply I know that I make about 1,920 pound-feet of torque at 900 RPM. So when I'm running like right now, we'll bump this up to 62 mile an hour, and I'm running 953 RPM. So you multiply that 953 RPM times 1,940 pound-feet of torque, and you divide that by 5252. It gives us horsepower, and I'll have more horsepower than what is required at the low RPM or piston speed. If I get on grade at that point, then the horsepower demand is going to change. And this is why we need to be able to move from gear to gear. I'm running across Nebraska with a full load. I'm going to run at 950 RPM at 62 mile an hour. I get into Wyoming on grade, it's coming back into direct, and it's going to run in direct at a higher RPM. But because the horsepower demand is higher, we keep heat in the emission system and drive down particulates. It's all about keeping heat there. If I was to run out across Nebraska at the elevated RPM, the truck isn't making the horsepower, which is true. If it takes 280 to move it, it's only going to develop 280. But our piston speed, we're moving a lot of air through the engine, and it cools everything off. And when you cool things off, you get particulate. So we want to try to keep heat in the engine. So when you're light, basically, it sounds like you have two gears that will work for you at highway speed, at the speeds that you run at 60 mile an hour. When you're on the heavy side and in hills, run it in direct. If you're light and it's flat, run it in overdrive. The mechanical difference in that particular transmission, is this a newer truck?
It's a 18579.
Okay, so most likely the transmission in here is going to be one of the newer, more efficient transmissions. So don't worry about that mechanical loss like we did in the past, because we were looking at 3 or 4% mechanical loss in the older transmissions, and you don't have that today. You have maybe 1%, but you're going to make it up in thermodynamics and piston speeds in the engine more than make it up when the power demand is low. So use that overdrive when you are light and it is flat, because you're going to benefit from it. You're a little heavier, you're in rolling hills, drop that thing back into direct and run in direct. Just kind of lose the mindset of, I got to keep it in this gear, it's always the most efficient. That never applies universally across the board. Use those top two gears. And, it won't take you long, and you'll start to get a feel for it. When I weigh this much, it's going into overdrive. When I weigh this much, it's going into direct. You'll find that sweet spot for that particular engine. I know exactly where it is on mine because I'm used to it, and I've got field experience with it out here. I can't tell you exactly on yours other than the generalization, that light, overdrive, heavy, direct.
Okay, and that's my exact mindset, is staying in one gear. So what you're saying is, if I run deadhead, I could go into overdrive, and I have to manually shift it into overdrive because the auto won't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of times the programming, especially in a few years back where we really didn't have our minds around this, they were like, oh, let's lock that out. Even the engineers really weren't really cognizant of what was happening here. Yeah, so just bump it manually and let her fall right down in there, and you should be just fine. You'll get a nice reduction in piston speed. You'll keep some heat in the emission system, and you should see a bump in fuel efficiency as well.
Thank you so much, and I just wanted to let you guys know I always look forward to Friday. Great programs.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Let's. I think this is going to be our last call today. We are going to head off to California. Tom, welcome to the program.
Hello.
All right. I can just cut to the chase. Your oil sample was 0. There's nothing to talk about.
Okay, sounds good. That was my main thing.
Unless you have some questions. I mean, I'm looking at it and I'm like, is this for real? I mean, it looks like you just poured this oil out of the bottle.
No, I just switched to full synthetic about 47,000 miles ago.
So
I was concerned. I've never done the oil sample thing before. So
yeah, interesting. So Joel, I'll give you some numbers here, and then you can talk to him about the specs, because it looks to me like, based on this oil sample, this engine and truck is spec'd well and it's operating well. But let's see if that's the case. So we've got 593,000 miles on a D13. What year? What model?
2015 B&L.
Okay. We've got 20,000 miles on the oil. And are you using Catalyst?
Yes.
Okay.
Very religiously ever since it came out.
Okay, so we can ignore the iron. Because that's the only, and that isn't even flagged. I mean, the iron, they're still showing at a 0. You're at 55, which to me is high, but the Catalyst explains it. Everything else looks awesome. There's no fuel dilution, no soot. Your viscosity's right at 14, which is just about perfect for this oil. Your base is holding up incredibly well. There's no wear metals. There's no... Oh, we have a little bit of silicon in there. I just caught that. I wonder why they didn't flag that. Your silicon level's at 14. We like to see it at 10 or less. Silicon is dirt. Dirt will cause wear metals, but we're really not seeing any. So I don't think I'm too worried about that. That would be the only thing. Why don't you go ahead and...
Where's the oxidation at on it?
Oxidation at 17. Nice and low for this many miles. No nitration, no oxidation. Looks like this thing's tuned and spec'd pretty well. I can't. It couldn't be any better.
Typically, our oil samples come very similar to that. Once we push out over about 65,000 miles on the oil, we start to see oxidation become an issue, and that is almost always what will flag us in a Volvo is oxidation after about 65,000 miles.
Yeah, here's the thing about that, though. And the reason oxidation means it's been exposed to oxygen. Basically, I mean, that's what oxidation is. And higher temperatures can create more oxidation. So if we see a truck with an oxidation problem, it's almost always temperature. Here's the thing, though. I haven't been able to find anywhere where oxidation does any damage to the oil that causes us a problem. So normally,
we haven't.
We look at oxidation as an indicator. Do we have hot spots in the engine? Is something not tuned right? Are we running it too hot? Whatever. But just because the oil has high oxidation, it doesn't seem to hurt the oil at all. Doesn't cause any problems.
Well, we've bumped up against that. We thought the same thing. Although, if you get into a warranty fight, they're going to point to that and say, "Oh, no, see, you're done right here, oxidation." So that's why we do change it. Now, when you say it's an indication of higher temperatures, think about what we're doing with downsped trucks. We're holding heat in the engine and whatnot. So the oxidation makes sense.
Right.
So we're running lower capacity oil pans with higher temperatures in order to improve efficiency. And that's the balancing game they're playing. This is why I like the idea of a great big huge bypass that takes 5 extra gallons of oil in it, because we're adding that capacity back into the system without putting it in the oil pan all at once.
Right.
So that's kind of my plan to beat up on oxidation, but his sample does sound good. It sounds real good.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. You're welcome.
Absolutely.
All right. Angie, don't screen any more calls. So don't dial anymore. We're done with calls for the day. Joel, since we started talking about the bypass filter, I see you're experimenting with the Harvard system.
Yeah, the guys at Hot Shot set me up with this great big 5-gallon Harvard that's going on the back of the can somewhere. But, we were talking about oxidation in the Volvo. When we downspeed them aggressively, it starts to become an issue. Everything else gets better, but the oxidation gets worse. And, talking to the guys at Powertrain, they're like, oh, if we could put a bigger capacity oil pan on there, we would do it, but that's going to kill your fuel mileage. So we thought, well, what the hell? Let's just keep it in the filter and just, run it that way. So I'm going to see what it does. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. The other thing I got going with filters really quick in general, I got a company that's going to build me a custom set of the cleanable wire mesh filters. I wanted to do this about a decade ago, and the particular brand I was wanting to use, the clearance between the filter head, the filters on the filter head was so tight that their housings wouldn't allow me to spin the filters on. They would touch.
Okay. And
the company I'm working with here, they're going to custom build them for me. So they got all the dimensions and everything, and real interesting stuff that as soon as I get some more information, I'll share with you. But I'm trying to highlight environmental stewardship here on this next truck. So I'm not going to have any disposable filters on it, hopefully at all.
Hey, great. You just reminded me of something else I was supposed to cover today and almost didn't. So remind me to come back to the environmental issue in just a second.
Okay.
Now I got to go back to the filter idea. Harvard. Yeah, it was the first filter I ever tried. I think it was the first filter Bruce ever tried, too. Way back in the 90s, I bought the Harvard. Absolutely loved it. It was, I kind of believe that the OPS was really modeled after the Harvard, and they just worked on the filter material to get it much smaller. But all the design ideas behind the OPS are very similar to the Harvard. They both have the heating element, which most others don't have. The Harvard was an awesome filter. It's just when OPS came to me and said, look, we've got the same thing. We've got a smaller form factor. It's less expensive for the filters. And the whole program, when I looked at it, it was just more cost effective. But the Harvard filter, I had one problem with mine, and it was a problem they had back then. I'm sure they've fixed it by now. I would get the unit. I put the unit on, ran great, changed my filter the first time, and their system, it's a separate filter that goes in a housing. It's not a spin-on filter. You put a filter down in the housing. And after I would replace the filter the first time, the lid would seep. And they'd send me a new lid, and I'd install the new lid, and it would work till the first time I opened it up and put a filter in it, and then it would start seeping again. And it wasn't horrible. It's not like it was dripping out on the ground, but it would seep out and kind of cover the housing and the filter, and then the dirt all sticks to it. And but I'm sure they've solved that problem by now.
I think so. The other thing is they don't do heat anymore to get water out. Their filter material actually catches water, and this thing will hold up to a gallon of water in the media. And see, I was kind of concerned about heating the oil to get the water out, because I'm thinking that's gonna spur some oxidation that I'm trying to defeat. And so I was looking for a solution without heat. Really?
It doesn't. We don't get hot enough long enough. I mean, we're really just getting it hot enough to kind of get the liquids out of there, and it gets much hotter than that in the engine several times. So we haven't found any oxidation issues with the heating element. But it's interesting that they found a way to do it with the filter. I mean,
so they're saying this big one holds a gallon of water and I think 2 pounds of particulate.
Wow.
So I'm thinking I'm going to get out quite a ways before I have to touch it. We're shooting for a once a year service on that filter and 6 gallons of oil in a year. So $144 for the filter and 6 gallons of oil in 1 year. And then the rest of my filters are all going to be cleanable. So I just clean them and put them back together and screw them back on.
Interesting.
So we'll see what happens. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get there, but we're going to give it a hell of a shot.
Here's the difference. They're using the size of their filter as an advantage. And
yes,
but Gulf Coast was a popular filter for a long time. And the problem with the Gulf Coast was the thing was huge. It was a mess changing. It was expensive. And their filter only lasted 15,000 miles. My God.
Right. That I looked at that, and that's exactly what I thought, too. I said, there's no way in hell I'm going to go through that every 15,000 miles. You're exactly right.
And you had to put multiple gallons of oil back in every time. So you had the cost of this big expensive filter and the cost of all this oil. And I like synthetic, so that was even more expensive. And I looked at it and thought, I'm not saving any money at all with this thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I came up with. It was 3 gallons every time.
Yeah.
And the filter was relatively expensive. And, with synthetic oil, there was no cost savings. So
no,
I don't know. It was,
when you think about it, and people would say, oh, but look at how clean my oil samples are. Well, mine are too at the OPS. And honestly, when I look at your oil sample, you're changing your oil every 60,000 miles.
Right.
Because you're putting so much makeup oil back in there. Of course it's clean.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right. Great show.
So we'll see how this goes. But yeah, it was a good show. I thought it went well. Awesome.
Anything you want to close with? I'm done for the week.
No, I got to get my ass moving here. I got to get a trailer dropped, and I got to sweep it out. And so they're probably screaming, "Where the hell's the trailer at?" So I got to get rocking and rolling here.
I just thought of something, because I used to spend a lot of time sweeping trailers, because I hate dirty trailers. I used to spend it. Why wouldn't it make sense to carry around one of these little electric blowers they make now?
Oh, it does. I got several guys that do. Yeah. I got one guy that's got an 18-volt bolt cutter to cut the damn bolts off the trailers when they seal them. Slick as shit. Slick as shit. Yep.
There you go. That's a good idea, too.
Yeah,
I've got an electric blower now for the yard. I love that thing. And I just got thinking, I would never sweep out a trailer again. I'd get me a blower.
Yeah, absolutely. I should have one. When I get my purple truck, I'm definitely going to have one. I was thinking I'm going to be in this truck for a couple weeks, and I'll be in my next one, so I'm not going to load it up with everything. Shit. Here I am a year into it almost. And
there you go.
It is what it is.
All right.
Awesome. Well, I got to get rolling. I got to drop some trailers and sweep them out, and we will chat again Friday, hopefully.
All right. I think we're getting John back next week, so that'll be fun. All right. Thanks as always, Joel. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Bye. We're going to wrap this up. We will see you back here on Monday. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Be profitable. Be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.